Plaquemine Parish Council, December the 10th, 2020. Meeting is now called to order at 4:40 p.m. We'll have roll call. Let the record reflect that we have all 9 council members present. We'll move to item 2, please.
There is no executive session, and we have no proclamations. Number 4, status report by the parish president.
Mr. Lapine? Could we have his mic on, please?
It's on.
Bust a beat, Mr. President.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a report today, and I'll be glad to give my report. I would like to take my time right now and yield to maybe 9S if we can on the agenda. I have a bunch of EMS or firefighters waiting to speak, and after that, I would like to yield to 9W if we can, because I have a
What item you would like to go to?
9S. S and Sam.
We'll move to item S, 9S. Ms. Barb,
And we do have an email for this, Mr. Chairman.
please.
9S, an ordinance to rescind, annul, and set aside ordinance number 15-71 adopted on May 28, 2015, which transferred, reorganized, and consolidated the ambulance department and the Plaquemines Parish Fire Department and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Russo?
Chairman?
Mr. Russo?
If this is the procedure that we're going to follow, we have all the chairs being occupied by the constables and the JPs, so they would have to get up and move. You want to deal with the constables and JPs, and then they'll probably leave, and then we can move the firemen in?
Well, if we have the firemen, they're waiting in the hall, they can come one for one and go out to go.
Okay. You going to do
Okay.
one at a time? That's good.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Black, seconded by Mr. Corey Albro.
Would you like me to read the email first, Mr. Chairman?
Please, too.
From Mr. Barry Becknell, Highway 23, Bell Chase. The best system for our parish would be a consolidated fire and EMS department with all employees cross-trained in fire and EMS. Why won't the administration and council create a system which would provide the best service for the people of our parish by making fire department merger work by combining the employees and having them work the same schedule? This can be done at little to no increased cost if you have people cross-trained to do both, as it is done in many places. If there is no desire to create the best system for the best cost, I would support the adoption of item 9S only if the new ambulance department will not go back to the way it was managed before the attempted merger with the fire department. I do not support returning to the old ways where you had employees working from home and were not supervised or held accountable for their actions. Barry Becknell, Highway 23, Bell Chase.
Thank you. Do we have anybody that would like to speak on this item? Please come up to the mic. Anybody from the table? Mr. Black?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is my ordinance, and as you can recall, back in 2015, after consultation with the, at the time, Assistant Parish Attorney, Mr. Rennie Burris, we discussed making a merger with the fire department and EMS. That merger consisted of a lot of steps, I think almost all of which did not actually happen. That merger actually passed unanimously, but it's been 5 years, and it just hasn't worked. And there needs to be a change. the people of this parish continue to ask us during these financial times that we're facing to make tough decisions. And this is a tough decision, but we have to make a decision here. And we've been doing this thing long enough. It's taken 5 years, and we've gotten really nowhere. We can't waste any more time. We have to make decisions. What this ordinance would do, and based on what we did and this council voted on during the budget hearings, would at least eliminate one of the two issues. And the two issues are the funding for fire, and the second one is the funding for EMS. Rescinding this ordinance 1571 would eliminate the issue for the fire department for now and through the future. It would essentially fully fund the fire department using the said dedicated sales tax, and they would have no issues with their budget. Yes, it would create an issue for EMS from 2022 on. However, at the budget hearing, this council appropriated BP funds for one-time use to be able to fund EMS through 2021. That will give the council and the administration a year to fix that problem. So instead of having two problems this whole year and potentially costing the jobs of our firefighters and EMS, if we rescind this ordinance, that issue with the fire department's gone totally. That issue is fixed, and we need to move on from it and then focus on how we're going to fund and what are we going to do with EMS. So that's basically the history of it and the background and my position and the rationale on why I offered this ordinance to rescind the 1571 adopted ordinance. That's all.
Mr. Bartholomew.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also concur with everything Councilman Black said. This was done in 15 because of the $15 million we had to cut from the budget. And I was under the impression that was not going to be a permanent fix because that wasn't the intent of the millage or the tax that was passed by the people. It was strictly passed to support the fire department. But be as it may, this has been going on. And I think 2016 forward, I've been trying to convince us to do this, to put it back like it was, so that the EMS can continue to improve upon its service and operate the program as it's supposed to be. Now, the fireman is fireman, and they're to protect us through the fire department, and they're funding because that's what the people said. So, with that in mind, I think it's our responsibility, as well as the administration responsibility, to put money in posture for not next year, but year to come, in 22, for EMS. We know what it is. We know what the problem is, so we have to start working towards that. Then, if it becomes a severe problem where we don't have the revenues, then I think we need to go back to the people. The people have to understand, do you want the services? This is what it's going to cost. And we have to put that on the table for them to consider. And that's what it has to be. But we know now, we know what it is. So we have a vision, and we should have a mission. Not just this council, not this administration, but the people of Plaquemine Parish should have this mission to resolve the deficiencies in EMS. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Roussel?
Am I on?
Yes.
I agree with many of the comments that have been made about this effort, and unfortunately, no one has been successful in making it work. However, the people spoke just last Saturday. They spoke loud and clear and voted down the millages for the EMS service. Now, we took one-time money to fund EMS to get us through this year. I think this is a step that can wait until we solve that problem, and if we don't solve the problem, then we go back to the original proposal that the president offered us originally. And to do anything less than that is to throw the EMS out in the street, and I would prefer not to do that. And I would hope that we would be rational about this and talk about go to the people. We just went to the people Saturday, and the people said no. Now, when you call for an ambulance, I hope that they don't say no. I hope they pull up to your door and take you and give you the care that you need to get you to the hospital for a life-saving situation. And just because we've got people in place that have failed to do this merger, which I believe would be the best thing, as Mr. Becknell sent their email in, saying that would be the best thing to do. But we don't have the willpower to do this, but I don't have the willpower to throw the EMS out in the street as well. I want to see us be able to save lives. I know that EMS and fire roll on the same calls. I realize that the fire department has built a bureaucracy over there, and they have a lot of members that are very passionate about the fire department. But we also have an EMS system that is very passionate about driving up to your house, putting you on a stretcher, and saving your life. And so I'm hoping that we can come to some agreement in this year. But to do this, all it does is put us further apart. And I can't support the separation. I did support the idea of us merging. However, if we are going to solve the problem, going back to the people, good luck. Because we had the business community against us, as well as a lot of other people. So we lost. The millage did not pass. I don't know where you were in the last week if you didn't see that. So having said that, it's not that I have an animosity towards the fire department, but I have to look at the broad picture. And the broad picture right now tells me that we need to keep this together in case we do not find a source for EMS. And if the good fortune comes where the sales tax goes through the roof because of Venture Global, the problem goes away because it's all based about money. That's all this is about, is money, as well as the lack of leadership to make it happen. Because when we put this together, we had an individual in the fire department that was willing to take on EMS and groom it to be what it should be, part of fire/EMS. But we don't have that leadership evidently pushing it. I've heard things from the EMS side, I've heard things from the fire side, and they like oil and water. They just don't want to work together. The EMS services that you talk about privatizing and all, we can't afford to do what we're doing now. So I don't know how are we going to be able to kick the EMS out the door and find some funding to save them without some type of compromise. Now, I've asked the finance department to see if there was a way to do that. I don't know if they've been able to be creative and see if there's any way to use some of that sales tax. Right now, the fire department has a surplus when everybody else is losing jobs. So you got to think about that. When the fire department has a surplus and you're losing jobs somewhere and you're on one-time money to drive an ambulance, there's got to be some type of compromise, and I'll yield at that.
Mr. Konovich.
Yeah, I think since 2015, the court's been pulling the horse, because everybody you talk to in the fire department don't want the ambulance don't want the fire department. Where it's not their decision to make, y'all put them together, they either do their job or they go home. Thank you.
Mrs. Newberry.
Well, we have some board members that made some valid points. I wasn't on the board when they merged, and I thought it was a great idea also. But the problem right now is morale. They have the morale's down with the fire department, the morale's down with the ambulance. This has been going on for 5 years. So what kind of care can we give our citizens if the morale's low? And like Mr. Russo said, there's a lack of leadership. Why we don't get rid of those problems? Find a solution. If that's a solution, then we need to change leadership. So that's a solution right there. Surplus. So if we separate, can we take that surplus and put into like an ambulance, fire department truck and work our way into that department where we merge together? So can we take that surplus and do that? Instead of putting money into do ambulance, put money into an ambulance that's red like other cities, and then eventually merge the ambulance back into that. But right now, I'm going to support this for a year and see what happens, because we can't wait to the end of next year. We need to get on top of this now. Now, the people that I met with from the ambulance department said they can make it work. And I think we need to find that solution quickly. So that's where I stand. I do support this amendment, this ordinance as of right now, and see where we go from here.
Mr. Blank?
What went wrong? Why didn't it work?
I can let the fire chief, but basically they're two different schedules. Fire, EMS and firefighters have two different schedules. Conforming EMS to the firefighter schedule, you would have to hire more EMS workers, which we don't have as money. And I'll let the chief speak on that to tell you exactly how it is, or how the structure is, because can't tell you, but they do work. Chief, can you tell them how they work?
Yeah, can I have a few minutes to talk?
Well, I mean, can you answer
I
the
can answer
question?
questions, yes, it's on different schedules.
Okay.
And if they come into our civil service, they're gonna work a 24/48, not the 7 and 7. They'll be paid hour for hour with overtime.
But if we conformed them to the firefighter schedule, we would have to hire more employees, is that correct?
Absolutely, did the math, we're running short with the EMS employees, we have about 15 right now, we need to have 20 to keep running 5 ambulances. We're gonna need another 10 when they come underneath our civil service.
Why would the ambulance service have to follow the fireman schedule? Why would they have to do that?
They'll be put into our civil service, and we have 2 different schedules, one for administration, one for operations. Once they come into our civil service, it'll be adopted as an operations schedule, where it'll work the same schedule.
Jonathan, can we take that surplus?
First of all, I don't know about any surplus, okay? For the last 2 years, we've been asking for gear. The finance department, the council has taken out the budget. I've sat there. I can show you my firemen are here, and some of them have holes in their gear that's over 10 years older, just like myself. So we're running burning buildings with old gear. So if we have a surplus, please let me know.
Let me know too, what surplus?
Well, go ahead.
'Cause everything I
Newberry?
try to buy them.
Yeah, I just thought from what I understood, if we pull ambulance department out of the fire department, I thought we were gonna have a surplus. Somebody mentioned a surplus.
So they have a surplus now.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
I think what he's talking about is there is a fund balance. They have a fund balance, but it's right now, at this point for 2021, it's $652,000. However, we have another ordinance on the table that's we're gonna ask you to vote on. We had an issue with the interfund service charges that got doubled up, and it's actually gonna knock it down to $300,000. So that's what their fund balance is.
For operations.
Right, and that's what's
Right, so
total fund balance is
It's not a
not
surplus, it's money you need to operate.
Well, yeah, that's what's in their fund balance.
Ms. Newberry? Mr. Konovich?
Civil service says y'all gotta work 48, or can you go to a 7 and 7 schedule like I know Algiers does, because my uncle been a fireman over there ever since I could remember.
Yeah, ours has been worked into a 24/48 schedule, and it's been accepted by the Civil Service Board, and that's what most departments do.
Like I said, he's in Algiers in New Orleans, and they work 7 and 7, so.
Right, I understand. I didn't say all, I said most. And that's
Y'all
why
couldn't
most
go
of
to a
us-
7 and 7?
No, we couldn't afford it. Believe it costs us more money if you do overtime hours.
You're not making overtime hours, and
After 106 hours, they're required to get overtime in a pay period.
How much are you spending now on overtime?
Right now, well, I don't have a true estimate because we do backfill the ambulance.
About,
Well, at one time, it was,
the figures I saw are close to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
yes, sir, and they are down compared to what they were a year or so ago. At one time, well, 2018, I believe it was 800,000, and down now. But keep in mind, a lot of our overtime comes to backfilling the ambulance.
So we were on our way to merging, if you're gonna use firemen on ambulance, so.
Well, we were, and you know, if I can have a few minutes, you know, and you're right, and I believe, once again, I'm here to represent my department, And that does include EMS, and I said it in the last meeting that we need to take care of EMS. We're not throwing them to the curb. When I took this job, and we talk about leadership, let's hold each other all accountable. One thing you asked me was for transparency, and that's something that I told you I'd give you. After a few months of being in this office, I met with almost every single one of y'all, and in your office or on the phone, and I told you what it would take to merge EMS completely, okay? We've had discussions. First of all, they're going to have to go get physicals. As I said at the budget hearing, 3 of 4 failed. The administration at the time said, stop, you're not giving no more physicals. This has been going on for 5 years. Our civil service is ready. We want to protect the EMS employees. They are our employees, okay? So we are prepared to put them into the fire civil service. The problem with that is, which we talked about a year ago, so when we say leadership, let's not talk about me. I gave you the true answers. We have to sit there and give them physicals. 3 out of 4 failed. Let's go down the line. Are those the only 3 that are going to fail physical? I don't know, okay? But let's just say that they are. And let's hope that nobody fails because we want to keep all our employees. They have to go to training, okay? They have to get fire trained, just like cross trained, like we were talking about. Who is going to cover an ambulance right then and there while these people are in training? We have nobody covering ambulance. We have no protection, okay? Next, we have to go to hour for hour schedule, which I believe that the ambulance people, EMS workers, they deserve to be paid hour for hour, okay? What happened with their schedule before that, I can't help. After that, we're paying them hour for hour plus overtime. We have some great medics in this department, okay? They deserve more, they deserve to be paid more. We can't do that on the fly. If we go to that, we're gonna hire a 3rd shift. We're talking about millions of dollars. And that's why it can't be. When the tax was passed for fire, okay, it was to set up the fire department, and that's what we did. We had enough money. We had good years. Unfortunately, you know, bad things happen, but some of those years were really good to the fire department. We got some money, and we had a bunch of money left over in reserve, and I totally understand why y'all made that decision, or the people that voted at that time, to merge them. It was a good idea. But based on the information at hand, based on the facts that we found out, it's not going to work. So, one, our EMS employees were kicked out of civil service. How is that right to them? They're not in our civil service, but they're not in the parish. How can they kick them out? What y'all trying to do is, it's going to cost more money. I was in a civil service meeting. My fire board is prepared to sit there and put them in civil service. They should be protected. My question, y'all, is where are we going to get the extra $1 million? Where are we going to get the extra money for overtime? Where are we going to get them for gear? Who's going to buy the new ambulances? And who's going to cover the parish while they're in training? We have nobody. What's going on right now, and it has to work that way because the community itself deserves better, okay? They want accountability, we want accountability, and you can't have rules and regulations when it only works for this department, but not for this one. We all need to be on the same page, we need to work together, and that's the only way that it's gonna work. We don't have the money to do that, and we can't protect this parish at the time.
My issue is, who's gonna answer the call if we don't have funding for EMS? Who's gonna answer the call when you have your mother or your father laying on the floor and you need an ambulance? We live 80, 90 miles an hour from the nearest hospital, full-size or full operative hospital. Who's gonna answer the call? Who's gonna answer the call when your child is in Boothville or in Beres in an accident laying on side the road? Who's gonna answer the call? We need, like Mr. Roussel, everything is about money, and we know everything is about money. Fire department, they save buildings and material things. However, EMS, they save people lives. And if it comes to ever that I got to make a decision between the fire department and EMS, I will choose EMS because we need someone to answer that call. And dealing with the pandemic, the situation that we are in right now, especially the way it is exploring, we need more EMS people than what we have now. And again, like I said, we live on the farther end of the parish, and we definitely, when we call somebody for ambulance, we need the service. Because every second when you have your loved one that needs to be transported, Every second seems like hours.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I totally agree we need EMS. Not once did I ever say get rid of EMS. I've never once said that.
No, I didn't say that you said that. Everything is about money. Everything is about funding. First they said it didn't work, it didn't work. A lot of times things don't work because you don't have the right attitude to make it work.
Well, once
And I think, and just me just sitting here for 2 years, this is what I feel. It hasn't been a push to even try to make it work. You try to keep it separate, that you got the EMS over here and you got the fire department over here. Well, listen, we serving only one people, and that's the people of Plaquemine Parish. So we need to make it, make it happen. We need to make it work. We need to do anything what it needs to be done. But again, everything is about money. And then we, just past Saturday, like Mr. Roussel said, the TAC package failed. Well, I don't know what they're gonna do. The only thing this does is hurt the people. We need to try to put people first.
I agree with you. And the way to do that is, once again, we talk about failed leadership. Mr. Robichaux, when he took over, he tried to do the right thing. He tried to merge them. You keep blaming, everybody keeps saying the administration or, comments like you want to get rid of me. We tried to do the right thing. The administration at the time, when they failed physicals, they should have been fired right then and there. Civil service rules, not to do with us. If you go take a job, you can't pass a physical, how is that anybody else's fault? Okay? They should have been let go. The administration, and we don't want to see anybody lose their jobs, okay? These are a bunch of my friends, and once again, they're really good medics, and we need them in the parish. I've said before, I think they should be paid even more. However, we tried to make the system work, and then it didn't work. When I took over, I told y'all full transparency. I spoke to almost every single one of y'all, whether it's in your office, on a phone, and told you exactly what it's going to take to get in civil service. And that's what you asked me to do. I was honest with y'all from the front. Now that it's all coming to light, or maybe we hid things, or whatever the case may be, you're putting things back on the fire department. We were honest with you, okay? So I really don't understand. We do not want to get rid of EMS.
We didn't put anything on the fire department. When I got here, it was there. We didn't put anything on the fire department.
No, I understand EMS was already involved with the fire department. We're willing to do whatever you want to do, but I just come in once again, laying out the facts. This is what has to happen.
And I laid out the facts. Who's going to answer that call? Who's going to answer that
We
call?
don't want to get rid of EMS. We're not trying to get rid of EMS in a parish by any means. Nobody's saying get rid of EMS in a parish.
Anybody said, I didn't say it. Everything is about money. Everything is about funding.
I have a couple questions.
Mr. Blank.
Sure. So, Rennie, what is the bare minimum that Plaquemines Parish government is required to provide for EMS to the citizens? By law.
Doesn't have to provide anything.
And in the absence of an EMS department that's run by the parish, what would that look like? That would mean there would be no ambulances. If somebody called an ambulance in Venice, a private ambulance would have to come from the city. And then
It would be up to the private ambulance operators and the citizens to come up with some sort of an agreement or arrangement for them to have service. I know in some rural areas, some folks sign up with some kind of consortium, and there are private agreements out there, but that's the only thing I could think of.
All right, and Mr. Butcher, in your opinion, what is the bare minimum ambulance service that Plaquemines Parish needs? We have 3 different geographies here: the extreme southern end, the east side, and the populated northwestern quadrant of the parish. What's the bare minimum number of units you think is needed?
It really depends. I mean, if I knew that on a Tuesday at 3:00 that we were going to have a stroke call or a fire in this area, I'd have on manpower. I mean, you really don't know. There's days on end that we have no calls, okay, in certain areas. And then there's days, I'm going to tell you, the other day, EMS has been running their butt off. We need EMS service. I agree. But it cannot work unless y'all are willing to ante up, and it's going to cost the parish more if they go under full-fledged under fire.
Got it. Are there certain cost savings that could be realized, like, for instance, changing the chassis out and keeping the, the actual box part of the ambulance and just swapping chassis out? Is that a little cheaper?
There are some, you can do a remount on some.
And that saves a little bit, but not enough to save the whole department, huh?
Right, I mean, if you get a brand new ambulance, you know, for maybe 200 and you can do a remount for 125, 150. You know, so it's not, it's a good chunk of change by all means, but it's not enough to save everything.
And outsourcing to, you know, like a helicopter base. So if somebody has an issue in the southern end of the parish, a helicopter would just be called versus using you know, the road ambulance. I mean, is there any
The
savings?
the paramedic on scene would make that call.
What's that?
The paramedic on scene will make that call. There are instances where they do call for a paramedic, for a helicopter to transport.
So I guess I'm trying to just get us some information here. So do you think that the current number of units that we have scattered throughout the parish is sufficient for about an average day?
For an average day, I would say yes.
Okay, and so
I
that
mean, there are times where, look, we've had, one time where we've had almost every single ambulance just down the road running one call.
Sure.
And then there's times where, you know, they're sitting idle.
Got it. So I mean, when we're crunching numbers or trying to figure it up this year, it's helpful to know these things. So just, you know, for the record and for folks at home, so there's one at the southern end of the East Bank, one in Boothville, one in Port Sulphur, and where are the other ones?
We have one in Belchase, we have one in Port Sulphur, we have one in Bouville, we have one in Point LaHash right here, and sometimes we have one in the Woodlawn Braithwaite area. We don't have enough staffing to keep it staffed.
Thank you. All right, I yield. Thank you.
Mr. Garrett,
I got two over here too. They don't have any run. You look at the runs.
Mr. Garrett, speaking to some of my constituents, they had failed to support our millages for the ambulance service because some of them felt that we was giving business and industry too much tax breaks and too much incentives. Dealing with the chart that Mr. Blanket gave me, I think we had came up that we had, the parish, basically give out about $90-some million.
Just to be clear, most of that happened at the state level before we ever got here.
Right, right. So what can we do to try to recoup some of this money?
Well, and if you're talking about the ITEPs,
Yes.
yeah, and that's just the clarity, and I know oftentimes y'all get blamed for it, but ITEPs are actually issued by the state.
Right.
And frankly, y'all really had no say-so up until a few years ago. When the governor came in and kind of changed the way he asked the Board of Commerce and Industry, which he appoints, to operate. Since then, y'all have had the ability to vote yes or no. But the bulk of what y'all are not receiving is from years past of these essentially 10-year exemptions that were at 100%. Once those are executed, now the only thing that is different now is that when those new contracts come up after the first 5 years, they are subject to certain performance targets, and if the business doesn't meet them, they don't get the 5-year renewal. That's determined by LED, in which case those properties that are now being taxed at 20% would then go to 100. But again, those exemptions were all issued by the Board of Commerce and Industry, not really y'all.
If we vote it down, they could go and appeal to the state and get the state give it back to them.
And frankly, I have a situation right now up in North Louisiana where the school board voted no and Board of Commerce and Industry awarded the exemption. There's some question about why they did that.
If it's $90-some million that we are talking about, is it possible, is there any possible way that we can get 10% of it?
Well,
That would give you $9 to $10 million.
no, under the new ones, y'all are getting 20%. Y'all are able to collect taxes on 20% of the property. Used to be, it was 0. So you've gone from 0 to 20 on the ones where the ITEPs are being granted. But once that ITEP contract is granted, it's out of y'all's hands. Y'all don't have any legal basis to go back and claw back that money. That the LED at the end of the first 5 years can determine that the company has failed to meet the performance targets in the ITEP contract and recommend to Board of Commerce and Industry that they not renew it for the next 5 years, which would take you from 20% on up to 100.
Well, I just wanted to be known to my constituents that there's no way that this council can recoup any of that money.
You're correct.
Mr. Roussel, you finished, Mr. Blank?
Yeah, just a couple more things. Mr. Butcher, if there were 3 to 5 things that you could do tomorrow to try and make this work. If all of a sudden some of the stops are pulled out and you'd have an easier go of it, what would you do to make it work?
To make the ambulance work, well, we have to decide what decision we're going. Are they coming underneath us? And we would cross-train. We would need money. We need gear. We need equipment. You know, it is about money. But yeah, there are certain things, but we need to take the correct measures to put them in line. And that really falls, you know, outside of my hands and starts with y'all.
So, I mean, are there some civil service blocks or so I'm trying to figure out how do we keep the department? You know, how do
to
we
keep them
EMS
merged?
in Plaquemines Parish? What are the, like, say, top 3 things you would do right now? So make the decision is the first one, whether to keep.
You'd
it or
have to
not
make a
under the
decision
fire
of what's going to
department.
happen.
Okay,
Then the Civil Service Board will have a Civil Service Board adopt EMS to come into our system. Once that happens, we'll advertise for their jobs. Their jobs all have to be advertised.
Okay.
And then what happens is they have to get physicals. The ones that pass keep their jobs. The ones that do not get a physical, they lose their job right then and there. Then they go to training once again. If they pass the training, they keep their job. They don't pass training, they lose their job.
And if they don't get funding, they all lose.
If they don't get funding, they lose job. I'm not here to get rid of EMS. I want to make that perfectly clear, okay? We're sitting here and it's horrible. We're not trying to get rid of EMS in this parish. I want to make that clear. We just need, if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. The parish has voted for a sales tax, and the parish deserves better, and we need to be better. How can I discipline my employees over here for doing something, but I can't discipline EMS? And then how can I discipline EMS when they have no repercussion to come back? I can fire them. That's not right to them.
So are you asking us to go back to the people to take that 1 cent and ask them if they would like to
No,
take
I'm
half of
asking
that
to
cent
rescind the ordinance.
and fund EMS?
No, I'm asking to rescind the ordinance. And that's only to protect their jobs. Because if we do this, I'm afraid some of them are going to lose their jobs. And then we're not going to have any ambulance coverage while the others are in training.
I don't think.
Our Civil Service Board is ready to do what y'all want to do. If you want to put them in our civil service, which y'all have adamantly said over the last 5 years, nobody has wanted to do, we'll do that. But these are the full repercussions, which I told to you last year. You know, and another thing, you know, we can sit there and say who knew what and didn't know. You know, we talked about the administration, like I don't want to do anything. You never heard one bad thing from EMS about me until about 3 or 4 weeks ago when some of y'all had meetings with them. Not one bad thing about me. They can sit there and tell you all the time, I provided them with more training than what they've ever had. Anytime a unit went down, I got it fixed. Anytime they have issues with stations, I was Johnny on the spot to take care of it for them. Up until 3 weeks ago in the last budget hearing when they got wind of this ordinance, now they're running to y'all and, you know, saying I'm trying to get rid of them and I'm trying to, I'm setting them up for failure. All we did was provide better service for them. All we did was get them in the stations, provide better response time, and that's for the public.
I can tell you,
That's for
Mr.
the
Butcher, I
community.
wasn't contacted by no EMS nor any fireman. Mr. Black.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just clarify a few things here. And Mr. Butcher, thank you for those numbers. You currently have, let me start by saying this. If this passes, EMS doesn't go away this year. EMS is fully funded this year. So to say that nobody's going to show up or they'll be defunded is inaccurate. EMS is 100% funded through the end of 2021, period. So is the fire department, period. We did that using one-time BP funds for both, okay? That's just, I want to clear that up first and foremost. Second of all, regarding the surplus, if fire actually had a surplus, then why would we have been faced with laying off 17 firemen at the last budget hearing? That shows you pretty clear that there is no surplus in the fire department. Those are operational funds. Now let me get down to what would and would not happen if this ordinance passes or fails. If we all agree and say, hey, listen, let's keep the merger as it happens, and we move forward with the merger. Your civil service has already said, we'll take them. What does that mean? That means you have 15 EMS employees, correct?
Yes, and one administration employee.
The first thing that means is that they would all be required by law to get a physical. You mentioned when you did it before that 3 out of 4 of the first ones to get that done failed. That would be, if that hold true, would hold true with the rest, you'd only be left with 4 EMS employees after just that first step. After just that first step. We already have positions on the books to hire EMS employees, and you can't because the salaries are too low. Is that correct as well?
Salaries are too low, the hours that they work, there's a nationwide shortage, other services offering bonuses, incentives that we can't offer.
And the reason why this could have worked in 2015, and as you mentioned, the administrations at the time shut it down, is because in 2015 and 16, we had 2 people that worked within that department that could have made it happen. Number one was Mr. Chuck Whitmer, who worked for the fire department, and Ms. Robin, who worked in EMS, who's no longer with us. Mr. Whitmer was fully qualified to train EMS employees to become firefighter ones, in-house, in-house. Robin was fully qualified to train firefighters to become EMTs in-house. So they would have been able to go to fire stations and do that. That no longer exists. So that has to be outsourced. That's money. That's money. That's going to cost money, and that's going to cost time because now you're going to pay overtime to backfill people to get cross-trained. So the last thing I'm going to say, I think I made those points, and I think they're pretty clear. And I do want to say this because we did the data when we first did this in 2015, the data study, and I don't think it's changed. But the fire department, just in and of itself, just the firefighters, is it still accurate that you guys roll on or respond to at least 80% of the medical calls for service in this parish?
I don't have the exact number, but I'd say 70, 80 is probably accurate.
Okay, so when you call for that service, you guys are rolling probably 70, 80% of those medical calls. So you're rolling anyway. We're gonna have an issue in 2022 with either both or with just one. And I guarantee if this doesn't pass, then we're gonna be faced with laying off firefighters and likely EMTs. At least this, what it does, is it allows this issue to be done, and then we can focus on EMS, specifically EMS. And I think one of the reasons why the millage failed is because it wasn't specifically written. I even asked Todd Epley directly what the money was going to go to, and it wasn't a clear answer. I think if we went to the people, if we rescinded this and separated it and said, hey, constituents, this is the deal. 1 cent sales tax, fully funded fire department, we have no issues with their budget. If you want a fully funded EMS service, here's a proposal for 2.5 mils or 3 mils, whatever it may be, and it's specific for emergency medical services, their own department, their own line item, their own budget, totally separate from the fire department, and here's the 2 budgets. I think that would pass. I think the issue is that, like my colleague, Mr. Bartholomew, had mentioned earlier, the issue was that the people thought that the fire department had enough money just to absorb all of that and what were we going to do with the rest of the money. And it was very unclear, and there was a lot of unclarity with that. So that's all I'm going to say on it. I mean, you know how I'm voting. It's my ordinance, and I'm going to ask for your support. Thank you.
Mr. Roussel.
Yes, just as a follow-up to that, the reason that the layoffs that were presented by the president's office to us were in the budget was because we were funding EMS. So that's why they were in there. Now, what we did was we took them out of the equation and we funded them with one-time money, which to me is kicking the can down the road, as we said, to find a solution for the upcoming year. Because when the end of the year comes, if we don't have one, we have no recurring revenue, we have no EMS. So the way I looked at it was that the president's budget split the baby. We had less firemen, we had EMS, and we had at least a survivable system for EMS. Now, I don't like rolling the dice and saying, hopefully we find money for EMS this year. If not, at the end of the year, you're all gone. Because that's what will happen. They'll all be gone. We don't have any money to keep them going. I would prefer to have some EMS and some firemen mix, and at least we can work on a solution. But by taking them out, it puts us up against the wall. Now, that's why the layoffs were in the budget that were presented, because they don't have any money to balance the budget. And we have to come up with the one-time funding, and we did. Now, it's true that the fire rolls on all of their calls, and they get there sometimes before the EMS because they have more stations, and they're closer to the scene. But they don't take the patient to the hospital. They roll and they can provide some first aid and some stabilization maybe. But the EMS people take the patient away, which is the critical part of this equation. Now, without getting bogged down any further, I'd like to ask the administration 2 questions. What is your recommendation on this proposal today? And based on that answer, what is your proposal for next year to fund EMS?
Our proposal was given to you at budget hearings. We get slammed most of the time because we don't do our job, or you ask me, I'm responding, okay? What is your plan? Our plan was to give you a balanced budget. We gave you a balanced budget, okay? You guys separated it, and now it's up to you guys which way direction you want to go. You guys give me the funding. I give the budget with that funding. So whenever it comes up next year, I'll give you the budget with the funding I have.
And look, I agreed with your proposal 100%. I agree with you. I think you did a great job of trying to patch the hole.
Excuse me?
I said, I think you did a great job presenting the
I
budget.
don't think I've ever heard that before.
Well, write it down and listen good, okay? Because you don't listen, you tell me. I hope you listen today.
I heard that time.
Thank God, because I think you did a good job with what you had.
Now, good, it was great.
What?
It was great, now it's good.
It was great, Kurt. You made us a valiant effort to balance the budget. You gave us a balanced budget, and that's where we were at. So that's why I accepted what you gave us. And I think that's the way to stick it out, because next year, I don't know what you're going to do. And I'm trying to get some feedback as to what will happen, but we'll ride on it on the way down.
Mrs. Newberry.
Yeah, Jonathan, I have a question. Mr. Russo said, of course, the difference is EMS, the ambulance drives to the hospital where the fire department doesn't. Is the fireman has just as much training as EMS?
No, ma'am. We are
Wanted to
EMRs.
clarify.
Okay, then you have EMS, who is an EMT level. First aid, EMR and EMT is a little bit different. EMT can do a little bit more. Then you have the paramedics. And they're the ones that, it's an ALS service, advanced service. They give the interventions, to push the medicine. And no, as far as fire, we cannot do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Tonovich.
I'm not getting on you, but you standing right there, so that's.
Y'all beat me up today.
And-
Come on.
If the ambulances was there, I'd be asking them why, when you get a call, you leave your house, go pick up your other person at their house, then go get the person who's having a heart attack or whatever. I think that's crazy for not being in one central location like the firehouse. I see ambulances parked at people's house all the time, and now you gotta go from one place to another, then to the person that needs the ambulance.
Well, once again, And this administration has been really good to the fire department. In the past, we've tried to correct things. That has been corrected. If there's an issue that you know about, let me know, but that has been corrected. Bell Chase is in Bell Chase Central. Port Sulphur 94 is in Port Sulphur. Booville Venice is at the Booville EMS quarters. Point LaHash is right here at the station, and the Woodlawn is at the EMS quarters. So if something happens, we try to change that. And part of the problem that we had was the administration wouldn't let us do anything. Now, we've tried to change these things, and that's part of the problem, okay? We've never had one complaint until 3 weeks ago, okay? I get complaints all the time about EMS. Y'all get them too. You've personally called me on many of them, okay? You don't get complaints on fire. We're trying to make one whole system, but the only way to do it is the way that Mr. Black and I have discussed. He laid it out. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost a lot of jobs. I don't want to see anybody from EMS lose their job.
Neither do I, but, you know, I'm only asking.
I don't want to see,
questions
I know,
I get asked questions.
I understand.
One of the questions I was asked, under you is lieutenants? Or what grade? I'm not sure what grade.
Captains.
Captains? Do they go on fires?
Yes, sir.
So everybody in the fire department goes on fires?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, I mean-
That was one of the questions that was told to me, that some don't go on fires.
No, I mean, if they're in Myrtle Grove at midnight and there's a fire on Woodlawn, I mean,
Well,
they'll
if
go, but I
somebody-
mean,
If somebody's filling in at the Bureau's Fire Department and they got a fire, they go on a fire.
yeah, the stations are manned, the trucks are manned.
Because I was told that it doesn't happen, but.
No, sir,
like
we have
I
run
said,
cards,
I
we have
can
run
only
cards that we
find
follow.
questions, answers if I ask the question.
No, I understand. We have run cards that we follow that dictate, what truck rolls to which call and how many personnel are to respond.
But the ambulances are still parking at a house.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that after, please. Let me know.
Mr. Serpaz, do we have any election for next year?
That's not something I'm familiar with.
There are scheduled elections every year. The elections next year, actually, I was just looking at them.
June
There's a
or
November
somewhere?
election, there's an October election, and let's see.
I thought they had one around May or June.
Well, but the only problem with those is that you're up against the deadline to get something on those ballots. Let's see.
February 6th, March 20th, April 24th, October 9th, and November 13th are the elections for the state.
And in order to get for example, in order to get something on the March 21 election, you would have had to have made your initial application to the bond commission by November 16th and they had a meeting on, it's actually their meeting scheduled for December 17th, but the final deadline to have your application completed was December 2nd.
So we missed that. I mean, we're gonna have to try to find some funding for EMS some type of way. So when is the nearest,
Realistically, I think the only time y'all could put something on a ballot would be on the October election or the November election in '21. And and actually, for a millage, it's going to be too late. Kind of the same situation y'all had, even with this millage that was proposed, is it's not going to kick in. A millage won't kick in actually for over a year. So it's not very immediate. A sales tax would kick in whenever you made it effective.
Mr. Blank?
Yes. Jonathan, say we go ahead and, do the separation and use the one-time BP money, knowing what we know about how the millages were campaigned against by both the business community here, a number of editorials, and, slightly more than 50% of the people that voted against them. Do you foresee some of your best and brightest hopping off over the next year? And what is that going to do to your department?
As far as the EMS, yeah, I mean.
Well, no, within the fire department, because it seems.
I don't see us, as far as fire.
But it just seems like we're going to be in the same predicament this time next year, come budget hearings, where we're going to be doing the same thing that was suggested in the budget
Yeah, I don't see us losing any firefighters. We already at minimum staffing, and they're very happy. They trust my leadership, and they trust the administration, and, you know, they're happy. I would like to find funding for their PPE and gear, though. Sure. We've been asking that for 2 years.
Thank you. I yield.
Mr. Roussel?
No, I'm done.
Mr. Black?
You know, only thing I'm gonna say, and it's kind of an answer to your question, Richie, because you just said it, and I'm a little disappointed to hear it, and I'm sure all the firemen heard it, but Mr. Russo asked Mr. Lapine, and I'm probably sure I'm gonna lose my Christmas present this year from him, but to make the comment that he was okay with laying off 17 firemen is somewhat difficult for me to digest. I hope he misspoke on that, but the bottom line is there will be no jobs lost in 2021. They're both fully funded. The only way jobs will be lost, guaranteed, in 2021 is if this fails and we move forward with the merger. As Mr. Butcher just said, there will be EMS personnel who will not be able to pass the qualifications. And the first 4 they tested, 3 had failed. Otherwise, we move forward with this ordinance to rescind. EMS stays under the system, and we work for a way to find out how do we make that funding happen for 2022, and we don't have to worry about ever having to fund the fire department again because they'll be fully funded through the sales tax. That's all I have. And Mr. Levine, if you want to respond to that, clarify it or whatever, I'd love to hear it.
Yes, sir, Mr. Black. I take no pride in laying anyone off. I take it very personally, in fact. I just signed 30 people to get laid off, and I don't take any pride in that. I presented a balanced budget to the council that we, as my finance team and my directors, did the best we could with the revenue that we have. So if I took it as a shot at the firefighters being laid off, I apologize to the firefighters. I don't want to lay one person off, but these are trying economic times, and I'm trying to live within our means. We use that phrase a lot, kick the can down the road. Well, I caught the can, okay? And I have to make some tough decisions. But we are making the tough decisions based on what we have as in our funds, what we have as revenues. So if I offended anyone from the fire department, I apologize. But also I laid off 30 people. So I apologize to them too.
So while you're there, we financed the EMS for 2021 through the BP lawsuit money. That's for 1 year. Do you have any anticipation where we would find the funding for EMS in 2022?
Mr. LaFrance, that is your job to find the revenues. Okay? My job is to give you the balanced budget. We did everything we can to find as much money as we can out of the money that was appropriated of the anticipated revenues. I implore you guys to try to work together, that we try to find a different alternate set of resource or money or revenue, and find out how we can fund it without coming back here again. EMS is a department that is stuck in the middle. They're not civil service under us, and they're not civil service under the fire department. And EMS is a very vital, important part of Plaquemines Parish, absolutely. And I'm not degrading their need or their use for what they do in their daily operations. What I'm saying is we have to come to a agreement that the EMS is going to be funded. Which way? Well, it's up to you guys, okay? It's you guys got to find the revenue to fund EMS. I gave you a balanced budget. Here's where we're at.
Mr. Konovich.
I'm only gonna say, Mr. Black said that fire would be good if we take the ambulance out this year. Sales tax don't go up, their profit, their money goes down. You know, if nobody's buying nothing, where are we getting the money then?
We faced that starting in 15, because the sales tax that was projected in them in 15, and from what they received in 14, went from 9 million to almost 6.5. So they're at the rock bottom. I mean, we're at the rock bottom on the sales tax. You know,
I was just saying, you can't guarantee that they're gonna be safe and.
well, you can't guarantee a lot of things, but I mean, at least we know where we've been through through 6 years of historic times financially in a crisis, and it's been pretty steady during that rock bottom time at 6.5 to 7 million from the sales tax. So I'm pretty comfortable to say that that's where the rock bottom's at as far as sales tax goes. You know, now if we get even lower than that, I mean, we got a lot more problems that's taking place.
Now, Bo, I was asking if, he was concerned about some of his best and brightest hopping off this year. If we don't have any anticipated funding in 2022, is it your opinion that we let civil service handle who is eliminated from that department, or do we allow the best and the brightest to hop off and go somewhere else, knowing that there's uncertainty coming up the next fiscal year?
Well,
What do you think?
I mean, that's a good point, and that's to this point, because if we rescind this and separate them, then we are giving the fire department assurance that we will not have a financial issue within their department. So the best and the brightest in the fire department will have some comfort knowing that in 2022 and beyond, they will be fully funded based on the 1 cent sales tax that was passed. So I think for them, we're gonna make an assurance that, hey, look, we want to keep the best and the brightest here. And we have those in place now. And by dedicating that funding from the sales tax specifically for them and removing EMS, we're sending that message to how many firemen you have?
Right now, we are approximately 20 to.
So how many you have total right now?
Right now, we have about 60.
So 60, and you need 20 more. So we're telling 60 people, you're the best and the brightest, we want to retain you. Now, we have 15 EMTs. Now, we're telling them, hey, listen, trust us. We're going to go try to find funding for you for the for 2022. And, yeah, we're going to have some problems with that. But I'd rather tell 60 people who are there in place, who are doing a hell of a job, that we're securing your positions for a long time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I get that, I mean, you're much closer, your district's much closer to a hospital, and you would rather, have those folks come to, put out a burning bill and keep your insurance cheap. I'm worried about my people having a heart attack and not being able to make it to a hospital. I mean, it's a very, very heavy subject, and there's a lot of lives in the balance.
It is,
But both workers and both citizens, and it definitely agree with you. It's not to be, taken lightly. It's
Yeah, it is, but
We're all sweating up here.
I just don't want to discredit what the firemen do, because they don't just put out fires and burning buildings. I think that everybody, even the deputies, I've as a deputy, I've given CPR, I've done those things, and I know they do a lot more on the medical side than what the deputies, historically do. So I don't want to discredit that they only, get the cat out the tree and go fight a burning building. I mean, there's a lot of things that actually saves people's lives. I know when your vehicle is, in a 20i and you're wrapped up inside of it and they can't get to you, it's the fire department who comes in there and takes that person out of that vehicle and saves that life. So there are a lot of other things that they do besides that. So I just don't want to discredit that. I don't know you didn't mean that. I just want to.
No, please don't,
Yeah.
don't with the words in my mouth.
Yeah.
Thank you, though.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I just said it. I know you didn't mean that, Rich. I'm just
Mr. Bartholomew?
not to be adversarial all the time.
Yes, it's the only comment I'd like to make. The government of Plaquemine Parish consists of administration and council. We are the legislators. We appropriate. They implement the process. So it's not done separate. We all in this stuff together. That's what we have to understand. There's no separatism when it comes toward government of Plaquemine Parish. We all are at this table responsible to making the needs met for our citizens. And if we have a whole year to find some money to make sure that the next year the EMS is whole or forever, there's ways of doing it. Get grants out here. Get companies to donate some monies. They give it to everybody else. There is an opportunity to go to federal government, get money for our certain areas of this parish to provide these services. There's all kind of ways of doing it. But we have to make the effort collectively and say we're not going to stop till it gets done. That's all I have.
Any more questions from the table? Audience?
Thank you for your time.
Please state your name and your address.
Michael Rodriguez, 111 Reynolds Lane, Point LaHash. Anyone sitting up here ever had to use one of these EMS units, like myself, in November last year, before we knew much about the coronavirus? I was in Point LaHash, a mile below the ferry, couldn't breathe, sitting on my porch, waiting for them to get there, which they came quick. They got me to Metacrest within 30 minutes, held up the ferry and got me there, the Belle Chase Ferry. Without them, I don't think I'd have made it that night. I spent 5 days in the hospital. They told me I had respiratory problems, which was before they knew much about the coronavirus. I had corona in November last year. Never been proven to me, but I did. We cannot do without EMS. We cannot do without the fire department. And one other thing, we cannot do without the Point LaHash or the Belle Chase Ferry because of this situation. If someone gets in a terrible accident at White Ditch, you're going to have to bring them all the way to Chalmette when you can hold up that ferry and get them right across to Metacrest. We need these ferries running, the EMS, and the fire department. I wouldn't want to be near one of y'all sitting on this council right now knowing how the funds are right now, or the parish president. I'm going to tell you that right now. But y'all need to find out what we're going to do, because you're not going to get a private ambulance company to come to Point LaHash. You can't even get an Uber to come to Point LaHash. You know you're not going to get a private ambulance. You're talking about a helicopter. You got to have a lit pad before emergency helicopter can land. I worked in the oral profession. For them to come in at night, you got to have a lit pad. So I don't know what y'all going to do, but something needs to be done, because the constituents are going to be jumping this high if we do away with EMS, fire, or either one of these ferries. And that's all I have. I thank y'all.
Thank you for your comments.
From Tyrone Edwards, 112 Thomas Lane, downtown Phoenix. I'm just confused, and I'm trying to get confused when the gentleman's up here talking about the training. Are you saying that if I'm an EMS person, that I got to take the fireman training? That's what I mean, the same kind of training the fireman is taking? That's what he's saying? Was that what he's saying?
Could you ask Mr. Butcher to please step in?
Mr.
Are you saying that if I'm an EMS worker and they get merged to the fire department, or when you're talking about that physical, you're saying that I'm gonna have to take the same physical as a fireman? When you're talking about that physical, or that's a different physical?
No, they'll be taking the same physical.
Right, and then see, so I was wondering why, there was a failing taking place, and if my profession is EMS, then I'm expect that I should take a physical that a fireman trained. That's not what I want to be. And so that put a person at a disadvantage to start off with to really do that. So if merging, then automatically a person was failing. So that was my first question. The other thing that I'm not sure of, Mr. Black, I heard you lambaste the parish president about taking a stance against firemen, but yet, when you was talking about the 60 firemen and the 50 EMS, you diminished the EMS and put more emphasis on the fire department. So you was almost like what you accused him of, you was like not putting the same amount of value on that. And based on what you said, that's how I took it sitting there, you know.
Can I answer?
For it. Yeah.
All right, so let me answer that. So what would have happened if we took his proposal, which was to lay off 17 firemen for the 2021 budget? Those firemen, those 17 firemen, would be out of a job on January 1st, okay? The big difference is that for all of 2021, EMS, all 15 of them, and all 60 firemen are all fully funded. So it's total apples and oranges, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about what the president's proposal was. His proposal was, for 2021, was to lay off 17 firemen. That was it. That was what his proposal was.
Okay.
This council went against that proposal and decided to fully fund those 17 firemen as well as EMS, and nobody in those two services lost their job.
I was just saying the way you were saying it, and I all the years I've been at the council, I see that before even Mr. Lepine came president, another president had to lay off people in our community who wasn't firemen or wasn't MTM. I didn't see you tell a person to take that same position. I just think every person laid off is important, and I really love your response. I remember saying to Dr. Martin Luther King said that a doctor performed a successful surgery, but if the janitor doesn't clean the hospital, germs are setting and kill the patient. So I just think that to take a stand on anybody being laid off, I hope that be your position from now on.
No, my position right now is that I don't want to I'm the same as Mr. Lepine and probably everybody on this council. None of us take it lightly. None of us want to lay.
Let me finish. I didn't want to get into debate. I just hope.
I'm not a debate. I just want to answer your question
I
because
just
you
hope that be your position.
Mr. Chairman, can I finish my sentence? You asked me a question. I absolutely do not want to lay off anybody. However, as a governing authority here, we have to prioritize based on how much money we actually have in the budget. We have to prioritize which positions are going to be funded and which positions we can't fund. So, you know, you talked about the janitorial services in Mr. King's speech. However, I have to fund firefighters, EMTs, life safety folks over somebody cleaning the building. I'd rather have that service than clean floors. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I figured you would miss that, you know, totally. I figured you would miss that.
No, what I said.
I know you're going to do it. Only I just hope in the future that you take the position that Mr. Lepine said, that every employee is important. Mr. Lepine, I appreciate your answer to that. And the dilemma you're in when you have to do any person, whether it's a fireman, whether it's a recreation department, that should be our position. And I don't think it should be the position as it should be the position of we, as the government, had that responsibility. Because I heard you earlier talking about how you personally met with the fire person, and I thought seemed like that conversation should have been more with the parish president. I don't understand how that happened, but I'm going to leave that part alone. So that was my main question was, I think you're doing a disservice because if I'm a person that EMS, I don't have no desire to do the physical training that a fireman, because I don't plan to go up and do that kind of work. To me, that's just something wrong with that picture. You know, you want to address that?
Yeah, I don't make those decisions. That's based on a civil service and a retirement. That's
Yeah, and I understand you.
That's the state of Louisiana.
But for the merger civil service, you got to take that in consideration. It just seemed like. Let me ask you another question, Mr. Chief. Do the firemen have to take the same paramedic training as the ambulance people does, a part of the civil service process?
No, sir, we have different classifications, and if we were to merge, okay, do a full merger, EMS wouldn't be required to have all the same qualifications and trainings that fire would. They would have to have basic knowledge of fire.
They would have to physical, right?
But I have to have physical. That's way above my pay grade, and that's the state of Louisiana and the retirement system. I can't help it. I can't do anything about it.
And then the fireman would have to do the paramedic training.
No, sir, we don't have to. We're going to give EMS would have basic fire. We're not going to send them to school. Like all the and give the certifications like everybody else has. We're not trying to do that to them. But they do have to have basic fire knowledge.
It seems like to me, to merge them together to be under civil service, that caused some serious problems for people who EMT. I remember working at the YMCA, and we were saying that every YMCA staff have to do the same thing. I said, no. That guy, that receptionist didn't hire to work in the weight room. They was trying to make me saying, well, look, that the receptionist also got to work in the gym. I said, no, that's not with her classification. It's not required for that. So I just think just hearing this today, I don't know who thought about why would you want to merge something when you're talking to somebody who don't have no desire to be a fireman, that they got to take some physical training that's beyond what they really want. To me, that's a disadvantage right there. I know if I'm a young person, I won't have the desire to want to be on the civil service. I got to take the same kind of physical that a fireman takes.
Let me clarify. They're not taking physical training. They're taking a physical and medical evaluation.
Oh, physical. Oh, okay.
It's a medical evaluation.
Oh, medical evaluation. Oh, okay. So they always had to do that, right? So why they failing now all of a sudden? Didn't have to do that before?
Ours is at a different level.
Okay.
Ours is at a different level, but they go, deep in depth, and if they don't pass that, they can't get into our system.
Yeah, I just think you got to look past the civil service putting EM. I also want to say the other question is for the guy with the legal department here. Did I understand you to say that the parish government don't have no responsibility whatsoever as it relate to provide ambulance service to the people of Plaquemine Parish?
There is no legal requirement that Plaquemines Parish government have an ambulance department or provide ambulance services. I'm not saying there's not a moral obligation or an ethical violation or not a violation, but an ethical reason not to. I'm saying there's no legal requirement.
But there's a moral and an ethical responsibility to have it that should succeed the legal part. So I hope that when we make our decision, that we're not making our decision on that.
Thank you, Reverend. Any more comments from the audience? With that, the machines are open. And the measure passes 7-4, 2 against. Now, who else we have in the audience?
Can you move to 6W, Mr. Chairman, could you move to 6W?
6W? You mean 9W?
9W, my apologies.
Nine W, an ordinance to amend the 2021 manpower structure and operating revenue and expenditure budgets, general fund, ferries, general department, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Albro?
Offer is read.
We have a motion by Mr. Albro. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Gouy. Mr. Albro?
Yes, I'll turn it over to the administration, but I know we all got several emails from Director Epley who couldn't be here tonight to explain all the different scenarios, but at this time, I'll turn it over to the administration.
This is an ordinance, I apologize, Director Epley, I think he sent y'all each an email today, I have a copy of what he sent y'all. This is essentially to run one of the other ferries, right now, it would probably be the Belle Chase Ferry. We have the operation now in Point LaHash. Of course, we have a ramp issue right now, and that's being fixed as we speak. But to run the Belle Chase Ferry on a 12-hour schedule for 1 year by taking $600,000 out of the anticipated CARES Act money, I apologize, the CARES Act money, and with the inclusion of Mr. Blink's ordinance on the table and anticipated revenues, we could operate the Belle Chase at a 12-hour schedule, just as we're doing now with the Point LaHash at a 12-hour schedule. We would run them on, different shifts. One ferry would run 6 to 6, one ferry would run 8 to 8. It would give our ferry operations 14 hours. This in turn would just eliminate one crew, or two crews, I'm sorry. We have 6 crews. If we do not run this ferry, or we do not vote on this ordinance, then we will be laying off 4 crews of ferry people. And I think Director Epley put in there too also that if we had the one ferry running and a captain or an engineer called in sick or went on vacation, that ferry may be shut down. Deckhands, we could get somebody from prom, we could get somebody from drainage, we can get somebody to tie up the boat. But we need a captain and an engineer. And the 1.5 that was allocated from you guys, that's all I have between running 2 crews, running a crew 7 day a week, working them 12 hours a day, then they're working off 7 days. So if one of these crew members would have to take to work for one of the other guys who was either on vacation or sick, he would be paying overtime. So we may be coming to you guys to for more money. I do have Director of the Ferry, Mr. Joey Hortons here. Would you come to the microphone, Joey, please? And if I misspoke on anything or clarify anything that I have. Huh?
Everything was good.
Okay,
right.
well,
Yes.
Please state your name.
Joel Horton, manager for the ferry department.
so I will implore you guys to ask any questions to Mr. Joe or myself. We'll try to answer them.
Is there any questions from the table? Mr. Bartholomew.
I want to go over the assessments, the prices. Pedestrian is $2.
Not on that.
We're not on that.
Just pass this out, huh? What you pass out?
We're on W.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, no question there, not right now. I thought you had to put the amendment to the flat rate, you passed that out.
Any questions from the table?
But you do, that is part of this thing, the assessment that we're trying to say, to accommodate the different deficiencies that's coming from this, right?
But we haven't.
I'm just saying, that's what it is, huh? All right.
I would just like to add, whenever we do run this, if it's just for the ferry down here, that you would cut off the solid waste department, heavy equipment department, and things like that, because we can't cross that down here. There's no way. And, a lot of people cross bigger trucks and trailers that live in the parish. That would have to stop too. So
That's the problem for
that would hurt the parish.
That's the problem for 6 years, we've been trying to resolve. We hope we got a way out, so.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I have to ask you, have you ever been involved in any meetings with the director or the parish president to include the judges, to include solid waste, the sheriff, all the folks who have a necessity to do operations on the East Bank, and discuss, and the school board, and have a discussion on whether or not you could rotate the ferry between Point Lash and Belle Chase and set up schedules as opposed to, just saying, well, let's just keep throwing money at 2 ferries to where you would, for example, have a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday schedule in Point Lash and a Tuesday, Thursday.
With the crews that that y'all plan on leaving me, I wouldn't be able to swap a boat because I would have nobody to bring another boat or bring the boat up. It doesn't work.
All right, so we talk about crews, and I know Mr. Epley, I hadn't had a chance to talk to him since, but, you talk about getting rid of crews. You got specialized personnel, right? So a captain, you would consider specialized personnel.
Engineer.
And an engineer. So would it behoove us to have maybe a list of those individuals on a part-time type of salary where they can be called out if you have a ferry captain call in sick, where you can go down that list and you might have 5 captains who are qualified to call them out at a higher rate and say, hey, can you come operate the ferry at whatever time?
I don't know.
I'm just,
anything
the
like
reason,
Well,
look, I'm
Mr. Black, can I chime in?
Yeah, well, look, I'm gonna support this because, we need to get something done. However, I just want to make sure we're taking all the steps to correct the actual problem. I mean, we keep
Okay.
correcting the symptoms, but we never correct the disease here.
Right.
And we got to figure out how we're going to do that. And I want to know if you have ever, as the head of the ferry department, have ever had a meeting with the parish president, with the directors, with the school board, with all of the stakeholders that utilize that ferry the most, and even community leaders, and Mr. Bartholomew.
I hadn't had.
Okay, well, to me, that's a little silly. But and I hope that would happen.
I have in the past talked to other companies that do, they'll get a captain for you or engineers for you, but the price was so outrageous, it just wasn't, feasible. Because we were shorthanded at one time, barely had enough to run, which we are shorthanded now. And
But
it's
let me chime in a minute, Mr. Chairman, if you can. Just for clarity, we're on our third extension of the Point LaHash Ferry. And as of January, it goes to dry dock. So we'll be losing one ferry. The Belle Chase Ferry is back, but for how long, I don't know. We've had so many issues. That's been on dry dock for 14 months.
Correct.
Okay, so when we say alternating ferry, and I don't have a problem with having a discussion, the Belle Chase Pride can only run in Belle Chase. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so when we say alternate ferries, I don't want to get into the weeds and say, well, you said alternate ferries, but the Belle Chase Pride can't go to Point LaHash. I have a Point LaHash on dry dock, and the Belle Chase 2 is giving me all kind of trouble. So we are open to conversation. If this fails and we're down to one ferry, we're going to look to any means of transportation from the East Bank and the West Bank, from Point LaHash to Belle Chase. But I just want to make that clarity that we're on our third extension. We had to call DC to get another extension for Point LaHash to keep it running, because my Belle Chase 2 was locked up at the shipyard for 14 months. So if this happens again and my Point LaHash gets locked up for 14 months, which I hope it doesn't, then I may be stuck with one ferry. So I just want you guys to understand what position we're in.
It takes a lot of personnel to operate the ferry department, and I know y'all all been around. Just for our inspections and stuff, it takes a lot to get them ready and everything. That's every 3 months, every boat has to be inspected. The way it is now with what you leave me with, I don't know how we're gonna do inspection, because you have to have a full crew on the boats to do the inspections. And if you let a COI elapse or something like that, who knows what they're gonna tell you need to do to these boats to get them back upgraded to get the COI. So personnel is very important on keeping these boats running and keeping them inspected, even if they're sitting at the dock, just keeping them operating.
Mr. Blank?
That there's some revenue that we could find in the form of some of those judges and the folks that utilize the courthouse and things like that. And I'll have some legislation early next year. Hopefully, we could pass that the second half of January, where the clerk of court, the judges, the sheriff, school board, Infomark, whoever else will be using ticket books, and they'll be paying for those, or there'll be a credit swapped across to where nobody will ever see with something not passing over in form of payment. But I think that those increased revenues are going to help a little bit, at least incrementally. I yield.
Mrs. Bartholomew?
When you get to citizen, I have our honorable principal, Ms. Williams, Christy Williams, in the audience. I wanted to address this council concerning the operation of the ferries, how it has a direct impact on Phoenix High School when it's passed.
Any more Mr. Konovich?
Yeah, I'm gonna support this, but Mr. Black was talking about so many days in Point LaHash, so many days in Belle Chase. If you got the Belle Chase Pride and the Point LaHash, you don't have to move a boat, you move the crew. And to go with the COIs on vessels, I do COI on 3 vessels by myself. I do all the inspecting, I do all the work, then I call the Coast Guard in and they inspect it. So I don't know why we having to have a whole crew to do
Because that's what they call for. You might fall under different regulations than the ferry department.
I did from 210-foot vessels down to 60-foot.
I
It's all the
understand, but
same.
No, it's not.
And Mr.
COI is
Kiner.
a COI.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Kiner, but you're right. If we have if the perfect scenario, we have the Plaquemines Pride and the Belle Chase 2 both running, then absolutely we could switch boats and rotate. But I just want this council to be aware, we've had some issues with
I
these
know
boats.
boats break down and
But,
a boat ain't nothing but a hole in the water and ain't no amount.
but what my point is, the Belle Chase, the Pride can only run in Belle Chase.
I understand.
Okay, so I just want you guys, because we're gonna get the calls and stuff, say the scenario happens that the boat goes down and we're running just in Belle Chase area, so.
I understand all that. and-
Okay.
Well, the personnel is another thing. I mean, if you don't have enough personnel to fill in when somebody calls in sick and that, it happens a lot, especially right now. Everybody's nervous. They get a sniffle, I'm sick, I'm going to get tested. If somebody needs to take vacation, you're supposed to deny them a vacation. If I don't have anybody to relieve them, what do? You just leave it tied up till they get
We
back?
have people that's cross-trained.
Who? You have to be
From what I
like
understand, the director's supposed to cross-train our
Cross-train
employees. Huh?
cross-train how? You can't cross-train the captain being an engineer unless he has
No,
the engineer.
No.
Hold on, miss. We are looking into that. We absolutely said. But do they have to get a TWIC cord if we put,
Everybody has to have a TWIC card to work for us.
okay.
They can't even be hired on unless they have a TWIC card.
But we talked about some options of putting some drainage people, some prom people, or something to tie up boats.
They used to do it before.
We do have that deckhand, but what if a captain calls? What if an engineer calls? Then can't call anybody else in the parish to come run a boat? That's what you run into.
No, you can't run a boat if you don't have funding either.
Well,
Okay?
I mean,
Mrs. Newberry?
Robert?
If we keep it as is, so we only have 2 crews right now. So how many crews in Belle Chase are y'all looking to replenish again?
it'll be 2 crews,
So it's 2 crews.
right? Plus with some maintenance people for relieving.
I mean, can we take those crew, okay. That's fine, thank you.
Any more questions from the table? Miss Christy Williams, please.
Good evening. My name is Christy Williams, principal of Phoenix High School. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about how the ferry affects our school. I thank you for saying, have we been included in the conversation? Our school, of course, based on where we're located, we're a very hard to staff school. And sometimes I think that we have to make hard decisions based on budgets, but those things don't count on how those things affect our students in our school community. Most of our teachers are already traveling, excuse me, I'm a little nervous, over an hour and a half to come to our school to work. We do have a lot of local people that we've tried, to train and be available. Adding this extra distance, especially to the Pun-La-Hash, is an extra strain on our staff. Also, our students, because buses are not allowed to travel on the Pun-La-Hash ferry. So for instance, we had a game today in Harvey. Our students would have traveled through Chalmette, through the Ninth Ward, back over the Crescent City, cross over to the West Bank to get to Harvey. Do that to come back when a ferry in Belle Chase is a quick, convenient drive. I appreciate our staff for the dedication. Most people are connected to the parish and they want to work here. We have some teachers here. In fact, the 3 teachers we have here with the limited amount of people are all from the parish. They want to work here. Even the ones who live outside of the parish, they pass up a lot of schools. Also, as far as the revenue, our teachers are some of the only people who pay even the $1 to cross over the ferry. The sheriff's department, they get a pass. Parish employees, they get a pass. Our teachers are paying to cross over the ferry. Some of the things that the district has done to support teacher retention is allowing for teacher transportation. the teacher transportation cannot use the Pond LaHash ferry because they don't allow vessels that big on that boat. So it is a strain for our students and our school community. I know you have very tough budget decisions to make, but our students have to be a top priority when we make these decisions. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Christie. Ms. Newberry?
Has the parish reached out to the school board about helping subsidize some of this? I mean, if this is affecting the school board, the school, the teachers, the students, I mean, has they offered to help with this? Has anybody reached out to them, to Mr. Roussel?
Have we offered to,
Has the school, have
Help
we
the school
reached
board?
out to the school board for them to help subsidize the ferries for their teachers and their students?
well, I think what she mentioned that, we did allow transportation and the Bell Chase ferry or the Pride with the bus. Tell me if I'm speaking out, Taryn, and the bus would bring, they would park right there by Bell Chase and bring the teachers over, which they wasn't charged, correct? Okay, so that they do have, we have made allowances for them to come in, but again, if the Point LaHash ferry is the only one running, they can't put the bus on it. So we have allowed with the Pride or the bigger boat that they do come over with a transportation bus.
No, have we asked the school board for funding?
For funding? Ask the school board for funding for the ferry?
Some money, funding for the student, yeah.
I'll make that request.
I
Okay?
mean, you know, it may be funny, but to me, it's not funny because we have students, we have teachers. I mean, they all have to get to that school.
I know, but do we go to the sheriff's because he has a jail? Let's ask him for funding for the, I mean, do we ask?
Well, the sheriff's office
electrical?
helps us
You know, they
a lot, so
I mean, I don't know where does it end.
The school board representative is here if you want to ask a question.
I'm just asking a simple question. I'm asking a question.
Please come to the mic.
I'm just asking a question.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to take offense to that comment.
Don't, because
Because
I'm
what
just-
our teachers provide is invaluable. It cannot be measured. So no, we do not give money, but our time and commitment to this community, you said the sheriff department helps out, they give. That's an insult to every teacher who works in this parish.
No point intended. I didn't mean it that way. I was just asking if we ever reached out to the school board to help with the funding. I mean, I'm sorry, never mind. I withdraw my question.
Mr. Bartholomew?
And nothing to say now, you didn't want what I wanted to say.
Yeah, please.
I just was saying the school board member was here. If you have any questions about the school board, ask her.
Good evening. I am Darylyn DeMar Turner, District 1 school board member, and also a resident at 108 Thomas Lane in downtown Phoenix. Insult is an understatement to what you just said about funding the ferry. And giving the sheriff department the utmost respect and saying that they do a lot for this parish. I want to say that we do a hell of a lot for this parish because we educate your children. So we do a abundance of stuff for this parish. Don't ever insult us like that again.
Yeah, that's not what I meant.
But as a school board member, I'm here. Ask me a question.
If the parish has ever talked to the school board about helping us fund the ferries, that's all I asked. I didn't mean it as an insult.
But it was an insult.
Well,
have you asked Plaquemine Parish Sheriff Department to fund the ferry?
We do ask the sheriff's office to do a lot
Have you
for us.
asked Plaquemine Parish Sheriff Department?
We're not here about the sheriff. I was just asking a question, actually to.
You threw it out there.
I was.
I know, I didn't say, you asked the question, has we ever asked Plaquemine Parish School Board to help fund the ferry? And then you turn around and said, Plaquemine Parish Sheriff Department does a lot for the parish.
Somebody asked a question, I said, I knew they. We're not here talking about the sheriff's office. I'll just ask a simple question about.
Ma'am, Ms. Newberry, you put it out there. Go back and look at the tape. You put it out there. You asked the question, have we asked Plaquemine Parish School Board to help fund the ferry? Did you not ask that question?
I did, and it mostly was directed at the president, just out of
But
curiosity.
I'm here as, I'm a school board member for District 1 on the East Bank side of the river. No, we've never been asked to fund the ferry.
Well, I don't
In all the years that, the Plaquemines Parish School have been in existence, they've never been asked to help fund the ferry. Now, I'm gonna ask you, have you asked Plaquemines Parish Sheriff Department to help fund the ferry? Because they use it as well.
That's a good question. Maybe it's something I may ask.
Yeah, but you asked it to us, so I'm asking it to you.
I'll ask that question.
Because they also utilize the ferry just as much as the school board does as well.
And I will ask that question.
Okay, thank you. But just to add to that, we need the Belle Chase Ferry. We also need the Pont LaHache Ferry. As a resident of Plaquemines Parish, the ferry is very, very needed on this side of the river. We have to go to hospitals. We have to go to grocery stores. And again, we don't have access to a hospital that may be 15 miles away like the area does on the West Bank side of the river. So we need a ferry. And we don't have trust in a lot of hospitals in other parishes, but we do have trust in Oxnard Hospital. So we need the Belle Chase Ferry. Again, I'm a parent who travels with the basketball team, and we come home in the wee hours of the morning. We have to drive around town. If you put the ferry in Pont LaHache, that means that's another hour added to our time as it is. So we need the ferry. So again, if you didn't mean it as an insult, I think you owe my teacher an apology for suggesting just a thing that
I
you said.
apologize.
Thank you, I respect that.
Mr. Roussel.
Yes, I think that everybody realizes the need for the Belle Chase Ferry, and if there's no more discussion, I'd like to move for a vote. And I know what you're gonna say, but I think we. Okay, well, go right ahead.
Tell me what you're gonna say.
I'm gonna fund the ferry. I'm gonna fund the ferry right now. I want every councilman to look at each other, okay? Y'all make 40 grand a year. St. Bernard has 5 councilmen at 7 a year. So 9 times 40 is $360,000. 5 councilmen in St. Bernard make $35,000. My goodness, we just funded the captains and the engineers on what y'all make. Now,
I'm sorry to inform you, we do not make 40,000 a year.
Okay, Mr. LaFrance, how much do you make?
I don't know, you had the answer. You tell me what I make. I'm telling you, we don't make that.
Let me just say this. Without getting into this debate, I think that the votes are there. Do we want to move forward, or do we want to drag this through the mud some more? I call a question.
Oh, wait, we hadn't finished yet, okay? Then we do our secretaries. They have 2 for all their councilmen. We have 9. That's 80 grand versus what we pay ours. Hold up, Benny. Then we look at what y'all have spent in restoration of buildings on Main Street, which is probably 25 or 30 million in the last couple of years, which funded the ferry for 10 years. Okay? This council, I keep hearing about how we got to cut jobs and cut positions. Let's start at the top. Leadership starts here, not down below. These are just the working people. And y'all have to give them the respect. But y'all don't. Y'all always push around things, and you don't look at the little people that are losing their jobs, that have families and everything else. All right? So this council needs to stop, stand back, and look at what's going on in this parish. And it starts with you, Benny. You've been from the parish president down. After Katrina, when there wasn't a single parish employee on the East Bank, I was on my personal machine cleaning people's yards because y'all never showed up. Fact. Sheriff's office came and cleaned up. Fact. Isaac was the same shit.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
And let me address that. You know, you're totally
I'm not totally wrong, Benny. I live on this side of the river. After Katrina, when I went to my mom's house, which is
Getting off topic, call the question.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just
yeah, I call a question.
Before you call, can I just say something to Mr. Black? You said something that Mr.
Come to the microphone.
Come to the mic.
Kurt Levine said he wanted every product, you change from good to great. And I just want to tell Mr. Black, I really appreciate, I thought it was great when you said running both a ferry, and I know Councilman Mark said, but I thought that was a great thing that you said, because oftentimes you don't make compliment, but I want to tell you that was great and good.
Oh, you gonna take him out to dinner?
I call a question, please.
Question has been called for. And the measure passes 9-0. I just want to let y'all know this is my last meeting and I would like to keep it under control. I kept all the rest of them under control, so I'd like to keep this one under control. Next item, please.
Status report by the parish president.
Hold on.
Can I yield my time for?
Wait up, hold on.
For the, justice of the peace?
9U. Mr. Albro asked me to catch his. He needs to step out.
Thank you.
9U.
An ordinance to amend the 2020 Manpower Structure Solid Waste Disposal Fund, Solid Waste District 2 Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Offer is read.
Mr. Albro,
Offer is read.
seconded by Mr. Blank. Mr. Albro.
Yes, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Roussel.
Yes, sir.
Just, I don't, if anybody has any questions, I believe we were all brought up to speed on this and
Yeah. I'm waiting for a question.
No, he yield the floor to you.
Okay, that's just to, put a welder position in solid waste. District 2, which is on the south end of the parish. We have one on the north end of the parish. And if we got rid of one of the welders, we'd only have one. The other day, he was working on the East Bank Ferry Landing right out here, and they needed welding down below, and we had no other welder. So it's just to be able to spread them out and keep another employee employed.
Mr. Konovich?
Just gotta, if he's not welding, it will.
He'd be working just like he does with everything else, whatever he needs to do.
All right, thank you.
That's how we're gonna work it. We're gonna multitask.
I hear you.
Mr. Blank?
Asking for some crucial drainage work that has to do with getting some pipes welded at the Empire Shipyard. Since we're going to have a second dedicated welder, is it possible that that work gets moved up in the queue and gets accomplished to keep the place dry?
Yes, sir. We could try to make it happen.
Thank you very
Mrs. Newberry?
So you're saying this is, we only have one welder for the whole parish right now?
No, we have two. One of them is on a layoff list, so we're pulling him off of the general fund and putting him on a solid waste fund to help another welder down below. It'll be at solid waste 2. He'll work out of that building. He'll work with whoever needs welding on the southern end.
Do we have enough work for a full-time welder?
Yes, sir. He'll be doing more than just welding like Mr. Albo said. He'll be helping the mechanic, working on equipment, welding the pipes at the shipyard and wherever else. And yes, Prone uses welders down the road. Sometimes we gotta send one from Belchase to Bootville to weld on the tractors or the bush hogs. We got one in Diamond Park right now sitting on the side of the road, needs welding done.
Is he certified? Is he a certified welder? This position, is this a
He's a welder,
person?
ma'am.
I'm sorry?
He's not certified pipe welder, no. He's just welder, construction welder.
How long has he been working for the parish?
I'm not positive, maybe 10 years.
Mr. Konovich?
So it's cheaper to keep him and move him over there than to just hire a welder when we need one?
Yes, sir. A welder nowadays is almost $100 an hour. You know, he makes way less than that.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the table? From the audience? Machines are open? And the measure passes 9-0.
an hour ago.
Item 9V.
An ordinance to amend the 2021 Manpower Structure and Operating Expenditure Budget, Solid Waste Disposal Fund, Solid Waste 2 District District 2 Department and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Offer.
Well, motion by Mr. Albro, seconded by Mr. Blank. Mr. Albro.
Yes, this just is for finance. This is the same ordinance, it's just moving the money around for budgetary reasons. It goes hand in hand with what we just voted on.
Any questions from the table? Audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Item W, 9W.
It's already been taken care of.
I'm trying to catch all four of them. 9W,
That's been voted on.
and W, I'm sorry, 9X.
An ordinance to amend the 2021 operating revenue and expenditure budgets, various funds, various departments, various line items, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Albro,
Offer.
motion by Mr. Albro, seconded by Mr. Blank. Mr. Albro.
Yes, I'll turn this one over to Tommy.
Ms. Connie?
Tommy.
Oh,
This one is a substitute.
oh, Mr. Connie.
Mr. Guy.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, this one.
Hold
is
on, hold on.
This
Ms.
one is a
Barber?
substitute. It's a substitute.
I'm sorry.
9X.
Yes, sir.
Yes, when you received the original, it was a blank one. It was just, we put it out there in case of stuff that we needed to do. I told you at the budget hearings that we did this very quick, and that in case we had a few issues, any issues that we came up with once we put this all together, and we did discover.
I don't have it.
Did discover a few. The main thing is, it had to do with interfund service charges. When we moved the ambulance into from fire into public health, we moved the whole department. But I also did an adjustment on the interfund service charges. So what happened is, we moved too much money out of fire, for the interfund service charge and put it to public health. So this is fixing that. So what's gonna happen is, the firefighting fund is actually, the fund balance is actually gonna go down by $300,000. It was at 6, so it's gonna leave them with the fund balance of $300,000. So that's basically what this is doing. It's cleaning that up. It's also taking, professional services from the, judge, Division A, and moving it from the adult drug court to the, Division A. It's just moving it within his departments. It's not costing us any money to do that. And also to, the interfund service charge, we're just moving it from one, boat harbor to the other. That's not costing anything either. This is basically a cleanup for 2021.
Okay. Mr. Black?
See, and this is where I have the problem. Because that first line, we're moving money around within the judge's budget. And that's what I don't want to do, because a judge, wait, time out, because a judge just laid off one of his employees, and the council's getting blamed for cutting the budget and saying that's what happened. So, when we put stuff like this on an ordinance with specific to moving money around.
Can I explain? It's because it's in the drug court. The drug court is a separate department from the Judge Division A. That's why he's trying to move money from the drug court to the Judge Division A department. It's two separate departments.
And is the individual that was laid off a drug court employee?
No, it was, he's trying to take money from drug court and move it over to, and it was not, it was a Judge Division B employee.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
Yeah, I understand. I just want to make sure you know that it's not, I understand what you're trying to do.
I just want the public to know, and the employees of the judiciary to know that we're not cutting their jobs.
No, you're not. You're not doing that. And this came from, the judge himself, not from us.
All right.
Okay, any more questions from the table? From the audience? Machines open? Blank. And the measure passes 9-0. And what you had wanted to go to, Mr. President? Where you at? 9Y.
An ordinance to amend the 2021 general fund manpower structure and operating expenditure budget, city and ward court court department and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Motion by Ms. Newberry. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Gouy. Mrs. Newberry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, let me get my ordinance in front of me. Yeah, these are, the justice of the peace and the constables, and they were cut 20%, and they're elected officials. They're not employees or civil service, and these guys only make $5,000 a year, and we're cutting them 20%. So they ask that, they get their money back because it's just not fair to the people who elected them to do a job. So and we're looking at, as you see on the ordinance, you're looking at $24,000.
You got the, okay.
And it would come from is it the undesignated fund? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's your choice. Yes, Judge. We left it blank, but yes, we could fill that in.
Any more questions from the table?
Do we?
We have a motion by Mrs. Albro, seconded by, Mrs. Newberry, seconded by Dr. Gouy. Any more questions from the table? Audience? Machines are open. Hold on.
You want to talk yourself out of it?
Mr. Newcan, please state your name, address.
You might be okay, Judge.
Yeah, Judge.
I think you're all right. Machines are open. And the measure passes 9-0. Thank you for your statement.
Better not to say anything.
What I want to find out is, are y'all ordering dinner tonight?
You just got the money you ordered. Sloppy.
Thank y'all.
Item T, 9T.
An ordinance to amend and as amended readopt ordinance number 08-211, the floodplain management regulations and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
We have a motion by Mr. Roussel. Seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. Mr. Roussel.
Yes, what this is the adoption of the floodplain management regulations and maps in accordance with the request of Mr. Epley. Also, it's a requirement by January the 15th to have these in place. So for all of those people that are watching inside the 100-year protection, it's important that you call your insurance agent if you have a high premium and get it reduced. If you live outside of the 100-year protection, it's important that you go buy insurance now before these maps go into place, because after this, the insurance rates will go up.
Any questions from the table? Audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 9-0. Could we please go to 9G? G as in goat.
A resolution conditionally approving the plan of re-subdivision of a portion of Track 5-E, Section B of Bell Chase Plantation into Cypress Park Subdivision Phase 2. The subdivision to be constructed in two phases, Phase 2A containing lots 121 through 169 and lots 185 through 210, and Phase B containing lots 170 through 184 and lots 211 through 240. All without cost of Plaquemines Parish government or the parish of Plaquemines and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
We have a motion by Mr. Black, seconded by Mr. Carver Albro. Hold on, sweetheart. Hold on. I'm taking care of this. It's you all right. I'll give you a chance to speak. Mr. Albro. Seconded by Mr. Albro. Motion by Mr. Black, seconded by Mr. Albro. Mr. Black.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, this is for, to conditionally approve the second phase of the Cypress Park subdivision off of FO at Bear Boulevard. It's for 120 lots. They've already had 120 that are under construction. I think they might have sold. I think there's a representative here to tell you how much, but this would basically generate an additional $240,000 of revenue directly to the parish's infrastructure budget. I don't know the exact number on the ad valorem taxes that would be generated, as well as the potential sales tax. That's pretty much it.
Is there any question from the table? Audience, please state your name and your address.
My name is Melissa Nance, and I live at 3222 Main Street. And I would be shocked if it didn't reduce the value of my home by $250,000. This has flooded my property several times. I have gone to the engineer. He doesn't do anything. I don't think this should be passed until there is drainage from my land to drain off. I have had floods. I have sent videos in. The floods were very serious. There is no drainage. The land drains from the levee, which is not surprising to anybody in this room, drains from the levee and goes outward from the levee. Every inch of this is where my land should be draining, and it's not. Not only that, my fence line will be butted up to either 2 to 5 foot embankments. And nobody has mentioned any kind of a chain wall or any kind of responsibility. And it's been long enough that this should have already been done, and I don't believe he should get any more permission to do anything else until he handles it. I've lost every garden we've planted. I've had horses with no place to stand.
Any more questions from the table? Audience? Dr. Goy?
Has there been any effort on behalf of the developer to sit and meet with you and to?
Yes, he wants me to realign my, yes. He wants me to realign my property lines so that he can make more money.
Is he given any resolution to the drainage problem?
No. And when I talk to Mr. Dugas, who's responsible to make sure that this happens, his comment is, it's all taken care of. I'll call the developer. These are supposed to have interim plans, not just overall plans. There's supposed to be an interim drainage plan for this. And I don't know if it's this board or the politics behind the board, or if it's just the engineer's office that has completely turned their heads away from the fact that this is supposed to have interim drainage and none has been made. And some of those homes are 5 foot, the land is 5 foot above mine. When I look outside my porch, the bulldozers that are outside, I honestly believe they stand taller than my 3-foot porch. I can't even, like today, everybody else could probably go home and mow their lawn. I can't, it's full of sludge.
Are you the lady who came about a year ago and addressed us?
Yes.
Any more questions from the table? From the audience? Mr. Konovich?
I was gonna say, yeah, let's have him address her concerns.
Wait, the only addressment here is doing it, not talking about it.
So, as y'all know, there's an extensive process where all of your parish directors and the parish engineer, she said, Mr. Dugas, reviews all the plans that's submitted. What's before you right now is basically a construction permit. It's conditional approval. I would say her land's probably going to drain the best it has ever drained once he's finished this work, where we will then come back to you for final approval, which he cannot.
Why isn't it draining now?
Well, there's been no work there's been, but for clearing trees, there's been no work done by her property. There's been no work done by her property for probably close to 1,000 feet, maybe more, because those streets just haven't been developed yet. And then as for the houses that have been developed, they all drain accordingly to the prior plans that were approved by the parish. And more importantly, I would never advise my client to drain on somebody else's property because that is a major no-no under the civil code.
But you're blocking the drainage from getting out.
I am not an engineer, but Mr. Dugas has approved the conditional plans that are before you. And again,
That ain't getting you nowhere. That ain't getting you nowhere.
that the engineer approved?
Yeah, that ain't get, I just gotta say, Myrtle Grove Estates, that ain't getting you nowhere.
I had no involvement.
Well, when you said Mr. Dugas had approved the plans, I said, that's not getting you anywhere.
And again, I would advise my client, it would, again, the civil code does not allow someone to drain on somebody else's property. That's just, I don't know that we are. And again, there's been no development next to her property line until this development that you're going to approve today will be done and which will improve. Because then again, he's not going to want to sell lots to anyone that don't properly drain.
Well,
Nobody would want to buy anything. Nobody would want to buy that product.
I think before we move on this ordinance, Mr. Black, I would like to make sure that her concerns are dealt with.
I plan on moving on this today. It's been a long process. I go back there quite often and I take a look at it. I've spoken to the parish president. I've spoken to Mr. Dugas about drainage from Main Street along to Planters Canal, from Old Cutoff Road, many different options. I'm not sure the conversations that Ms. Nance has had with Mr. Waltermath, who's the developer, or Mr. Bro, who's attorney, in regards to alleviation of those things. I know that she has been offered, I guess, compensation or even a relocation of the property to better alleviate those issues. That's because I went to him and asked him to make sure that that property doesn't have an issue. I know Mr. Dugas called about 3 weeks ago or so and had an issue with who's going to maintain that section between the end of the neighborhood and Ms. Nance's property. And it's clearly identified in the ordinance and as well as in those covenants. I mean, everything's been.
And that's clearly marked on the final plat. That should be before you in your packets. If you have that, it shows a big drainage servitude on the development's property, which is going to take any and all water that would be on those lots away from her property. So it'll drain better than it does now because.
So listen, hold on.
All that's been there was trees.
Evidently, this lady is having a problem. I don't think she's up here just making things up. She has a problem.
And I know in the past that my door's, well, I've never spoken to her, but my client has spoken to her, and he's always had an open door with her to address any issues that she may have. And I don't know why he would choose to do anything detrimental to her. Again, that would not be wise to purposely flood on somebody's property. That just, he would not do that. He's developed things all over the Gulf Coast. I don't know why he would, at one time in one sentence, decide to do this now.
Mr. Blank.
Sure. Would it be okay to visit your house tomorrow morning to see for myself? Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Konovich.
You know, he might have built 100 other subdivisions and not put water on anybody's property, but he's doing it right now. Me, I was doing it, I dig the drainage first before I built the first house.
So he'll dig drainage with this approval under the plan that's before you right now. Again, anything that he's built doesn't drain to her right now. It all drains directly into Planters Canal.
And I don't like hearing that, oh, she didn't accept the offer of buying her property. Well, you could come give me $1 million for my property, I ain't leaving. Because my family's been there since 1600. I'm gonna be the last one buried on it. So I'd say we wait till they fix her problem before we vote on this one. Thank you.
Because no one has called me.
It's not, I'll let you speak, but I'm not supposed to. But I know you're very passionate on it.
I have not had any conversation with with the developer at all, other than the fact that he wants me to move my piece of property so that he can make more money. That's the only discussion he's had with us. And I don't understand why you can't if there's supposed to be interim drainage. I should have never flooded the first time. There's no the land that is built up 3 to 5 feet, I can't tell you because I'm not an engineer, 3 to 5 feet is behind where my land is supposed to drain out. Yes, he's telling the truth. Maybe it's not draining this way, although actually it is, but probably only this week because I recognize that bulldozers come in on a regular basis. So there is something leaning there this week, but that's not the issue. They're up 2 to 5 feet. 2 to 5 feet. The water has no place to go, and there was no reason to wait till today to do it. It could have been done before he started. As a matter of fact, Dugas told me the first time I talked to him, he said this will take 2 days, and it'll be taken care of.
I'd just like to,
Dr. Gouy?
if you would, first of all, Mr. Burrow, I don't think your client would ever want to drain on someone else's property. I know who you're speaking of, and I know the quality of work, and I know the integrity. But the fact is, water is being drained on her property. And if that were my property, I would be up there raising the same hell that she's raising. I haven't been privy to conversations between the two, but I really think it would behoove the developer to give her some interim relief in good faith to drain her property and then proceed with your development. I don't have an answer for you other than it's quite a dilemma. And I think if we put ourselves in Miss Nancy's shoes, that we would feel the same as she does. I know there's an answer. You just got to work it out.
Mr. Roussel?
Yes, and I agree that he probably doesn't want to drain on her, but he's probably blocking the drainage so she cannot drain. So I would suggest that you address the drainage as well, because, if I build a chain wall around me, I keep and retain all my water, but I also block my neighbors from draining as well.
Mr. Black?
Let me just say this. This is what this ordinance does. It's a conditional approval that allows them to go to actually spend the money to put in the drainage. That's what this does. It's a conditional approval for them to go alleviate all those issues and work through that. Ms. Nance is in my district, okay? I've been out there multiple times. Ms. Nance is just, nothing's gonna make her satisfied with this neighborhood. She bought the neighborhood from the beginning, period. So whether it's drainage or it's the next thing or the next thing or the next thing, and that's just something that, that's the facts. So this ordinance, what it does, it allows the developer to go alleviate all of those issues if there are any issues. We just passed the base flood elevation map, and that's what they're building to. That's why the land's high, is because they're required to by the ordinance we just passed, the FEMA flood maps. And I'm gonna tell you, she lives on the south side of that particular property. The drainage flow is from east to west, from the river down, and runs into Planters Canal. I'm very familiar with that drainage situation there. And there's no property being built to the east side of that particular property. So, look, I looked at the plans, like Mr. Bro said, it's been approved by every director. It's been approved by the parish president's office. I'm ready to move forward with it. If there are any issues, I think they'll be alleviated. I have no issues with the developer. Everything we've asked for, he's alleviated those issues. And I think that what this ordinance does is it puts the actual proper subsurface drainage and the surface drainage in.
I've never had floods until he did this. And I had pictures of floods.
I have nothing else.
All right. Any more comments from the table? Okay, you may.
I cannot emphasize enough. It's on that final plat that Richie's looking at right now. It shows a significant drainage servitude around her property. It will drain that property and the and my client's property will probably drain the best it has ever been if you vote yes to this tonight, because it will alleviate these problems. In fact, I will tell him tomorrow first thing, or I'll call him on my way up the road after this, that to start on the ditch tomorrow, because that is exactly what, Bo's right, it's exactly what it does. It's a conditional approval by all of your directors that have approved it, and your engineering department that approved it, all saying yes, that these are good plans, and it's gonna her property will drain the best it's ever been. He just needs the conditional approval, because he's telling y'all, this is what I'm doing, and y'all are approving it. So it's basically, we're in a circular argument here. So I'll tell him to start tomorrow on that servitude.
Dugas, the engineer, ordered him to do it more than a year ago.
This is conditional approval. There will be a second opportunity if he doesn't do what Mr. Bro is saying he does. It comes back before the council, and we can deny it.
So,
Mr. Blank?
yeah, sure. I just want to ask, Mr. Black, so in the future, if there's a drainage issue over there, who's on the hook for it? The parish government or the landowners?
No, they are. The developer is.
So,
We're on the hook for it. It's all private drainage. It says it on the plat.
got it. So the subsequent owners of property comprising phases 2A and 2B will be responsible for the maintenance upkeep of the swale, interior drainage ditch, and the culverts. So, I mean, do you think those folks are going to maintain their drainage?
Yeah, when they buy the property,
Through
it's
the
HOA.
HOA.
It works right now in the parks. It's worked in the
Yeah.
first phase of this one. Not only do they maintain the drainage and swales, but the parish doesn't have to worry about the streets. The parish doesn't have to worry about the lights. Y'all just sit back and collect revenue.
And I can't afford the lawyers, because these guys can keep me in court forever.
But we can deny it if it comes to the final.
Correct.
If they haven't done what they told us to do. That's it. Simple.
Cannot sell one lot until you vote final approval.
Based on the fact that they didn't do it a year ago, and they were given orders by the head of the engineer department then.
Ma'am, they've done it. Look. This is, I call a point of order here. I mean, this is,
Put an amendment in it saying they gotta do the drainage before they get a lot.
that's exactly right. But that's what this does.
Exactly what it does.
This is only conditional. This makes them do that. So when they come back up for final approval, if it hasn't been done, we deny it until it gets fixed. Continuously. They can't invest the money to do it without the conditional approval. I mean, that's as simple as that.
Mr. Russo?
Yeah, you can't convince me that they can't go out there and improve the drainage without this. I believe that she's telling us that they promised the drainage a year ago. Dugas said it could get done and it hadn't been done. And to come back at the final and say we're gonna deny after all of the investment, that's not gonna happen here.
And it's in my, and
It's not gonna happen
all due
here.
respect, it's in my
Look,
district.
I have the floor,
I've got
Mr.
one
Black.
complainant, and she complained before about the neighbor to begin with. It's in my district. I went out there personally. I've looked at it. I understand what the conditional approval means. I understand we have the ability to block the final approval, and that's it. With that, I want to call a question.
Question has been called for. And the measure failed. 4-4, one abstention. Now you have a chance to fix the drainage before you come back.
Or they can abandon 120 homes, which our residents are moving to, lose $240,000 in impact fees, ad valorem taxes, everything else. We talk about stifling this parish. I mean, we're going to sit here and vote against.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, that's a high order.
Let's go, let's move to the next item, please.
Which item would you like to move to?
Let's go back to
That's
the,
right.
yeah. Let's go back to, the president report.
Item 4, status report by the parish president.
Good evening, guys. Good night. According to Wednesday update from Louisiana Department of Health, over 17,000 Plaquemines Parish residents have been tested for COVID-19. Out of the 17,000 tested, 1,142 have been confirmed positive cases and 19 deaths. According to LDH, the last COVID-related death was July 31st. Louisiana will stay in a modified Phase 2 in December 23rd. Our 2-week positivity rate is 8.7. From 11/19 to 11/25, we were at 6.2. From 11/26 to 12/2, we were at 11.2. This is the parish's second week with the percent positivity over 5%. According to Governor John Bel Edwards' modified Phase 2 guidelines, the increase in the parish percentage positivity will only affect standalone bars at this time. Standalone bars are called to close to indoor consumption and can allow outdoor seating up to 50 people seated and spaced out with mask mandate. Once the parish is back at 5% or below for 2 consecutive weeks, indoor bars are allowed to reopen. If you know of an establishment not following COVID-19 regulations and guidelines, please contact the Louisiana State Fire Marshal complaint line at 1-800-256-5452. We urge all residents and business to please continue to follow all executive orders set out by the governor and all CDC suggestions and rules, including wearing face masks as well as social distancing. The vaccine timeline. Yesterday, LDH officials provided the parish entities with a timeline and details on the COVID-19 vaccination. This information has been added to our COVID-19 alert on the parish website. It is likely that at least one of the COVID-19 vaccine will be available December 2020 for a limited number of people. The first group to receive the vaccine will be healthcare workers and nursing homes. Over time, the type of people who can receive the vaccine will extend as the numbers of vaccine doses increase. It is likely that the vaccine will not be available for the public until spring of 2021. These phase priorities will be determined by CDC's Advisory Council, which is a non-governmental group of medical and public health experts. Below is the estimated timeline based on the current projections. Priority Group A, distributed to begin as early as December 2020. This would be healthcare workers, nursing home residents, as provided. Priority Group B, distribution to begin 2021, which will be essential personnel. Priority Group C, distribution to begin early 2021, seniors and people with existing medical conditions. And the next would be general public, distribution to begin spring and summer of 2021. Widespread availability to the public, including children and healthy adults. The COVID-19 vaccines purchased by the government will be free to the person receiving the vaccine. Depending on where you receive the vaccine, you'll be asked for your health insurance information. Food drives. The last parish-sponsored food drive for 2020 will be Monday, December 14th at Plaquemines Parish Government Complex. The food drive will be a drive-through, first come, first served, starting at 10 a.m. Toys for Tots. The mission of the Marines Toys for Tots Foundation to assist the U.S. Marine Corps in providing a tangible sign of hope to children from Christmas. It is at this time of year, again, Toys for Tots campaign kickoff. Drop a new unwrapped toy in one of our toy location boxes throughout our parish. Collections will end Friday, December 18, 2020, and we'll have a box at the Plaquemines Government Complex, the Fort Jackson Museum, the Port Sulphur Government Building, and the Plaquemines Parish Courthouse. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that is my report.
Mr. President, do we have the capacity to hold that vaccination? I think some of that vaccination is supposed to be like 70 or 80, 90 degrees below zero.
In the meeting yesterday, there's actually 2 different vaccines, and we don't know which one is coming first. There's a Pfizer and Moderna, yeah. So those, and we don't want, there's one that is, that you keep frozen, and there's one that is just a normal vaccine. Leslie Press has ordered a commercial freezer to store the vaccines at the PMC Center. That is on order. We just, the state officials don't know which one we're getting first. So, I guess it would determine which one we get first.
So I noticed some of the leaders in different states was the first one to take the vaccination. Are you going to be the first one to take the vaccination in the parish?
I will be the first one. If you need me to, I would defer to. I'm not afraid to. I would defer to our seniors first, our most vulnerable.
You all.
Who said that over there? They're probably older than me. But no, in all, in seriousness, we talked about that yesterday in the meeting, that the senior citizens at the nursing home would be the first one, and the frontline workers, the PMC workers, our EMTs, our firefighters, those would be the first ones that would be vaccinated. I got a flu shot the other day. My arm's still hurting, so I don't know.
Do you know of any hot spots that we have in the parish?
I've asked Leslie Press today to give me an account of, broken down geographically with a zip code of where the new cases are popping up. And I didn't receive that information this evening to give it. I've heard rumors, Mr. LaFrance, that there's more popping up down the road. But I don't have any information to tell me where is the big influx of new cases.
How are we handling running these community centers out
Well, now as the
with
guideline,
the pandemic?
okay, well, now as the guidelines come out, we are adhering to what the governor's regulations say now.
I know you were supposed to have a press conference at 3:00 today.
Today?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it. I don't know what happened, or if they modified that or not. I don't know. We usually, when they do, we get it in a proclamation form. So I'm waiting, as soon as I get that, if it changes, we will notify every, buildings that we have rented that to adhere to what, the government says.
Do you feel comfortable that we have the manpower to monitor these mandates that's coming from the governor?
We'll do the best I can. This is the governor's proclamation, so really it falls on the governor's office. Luckily, we have a health department. We're one of the few parishes that have our own health department. So we'll use our resources to help provide information to our residents, but the ultimate responsibility falls on the government or the state fire marshal.
Any other questions from the table? Mr. Blank?
Yeah, sure. Talking about the hospital and COVID-19.
Hold on, I'm trying to bring him up now. Go ahead, Mr. Blank.
Sure. Speaking about COVID-19 and the PMC, sort of jogged my memory here. I wanted to bring this up during the firefighter EMS discussion, but would it be possible that PMC could start helping with the funding of the EMS units in the southern end of the parish, or something that, something like that? I think it might be a big help. Of course, they're not going to want to get off of a single dime that they have, understandably. But has that been looked at?
I apologize, Mr. You help with what?
So could PMC possibly start funding the EMS department, or at least a part of it? I mean, it's a hospital district, and that's part of.
I don't know if that would qualify. They do get certain funds through millages. I don't know if those millages are dedicated just for the medical center to fund EMS. I don't know. I may have to rely on a legal question from these two guys. I'm not sure.
Sure. I mean, it's just a thought, and maybe an avenue that needs to be explored. And we could talk about it offline later.
Okay.
Mr. Blink, I haven't read the millage that was adopted for that. I mean, it's possible, but I wouldn't want to comment on it until I actually look at the specific language adopted.
Certainly. Just a thought.
I want to say that I think that we leave a lot of money on the table that sometimes that can be available by us, but I think this parish desperately need a grant writer. We desperately need a grant writer.
Well, we have a grant writer, and it's Hilda Lott.
She knows. When I spoke to her, she said she is not a grant writer.
She is a grant administrator that does write some grants that try. Look, again, you are exactly right. If we could get, I've had this conversation many a times with Mr. Blink. If we could get someone funded for a grant writer.
No. I just so happen to have $40-something thousand available in my budget for next year.
Well, I don't know. You got 40, well, do an ordinance. do an ordinance and, you know, we'll look into that, absolutely. But
Mr. Bartholomew?
let me just say, some grants come with matches, you know, so we're having trouble finding money to do just minimal stuff around here, so I just want to put that on the table.
I think what the direction would be, it's not necessarily move to get somebody to do grants on salary, but to get people to look for grants based on their accomplishment of receiving the grants, and they get their money from the administrative fee out of the grant.
Right.
So rather, it won't charge us anything, but we need to put it out there that we're looking for someone that's willing to do that at no cost to the Plaquemine Parish government. They're out there. Trust me, they are. They're out there. Because last meeting we attended with the Police Jury Association, I was in a meeting, and several of those people, that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. As a matter of fact, we had Judy Bordelon, I think, a while back with Betty administration, when he was the president. Judy Bordelon used to do that. She works with Ms. Hilden now. But she used to write the grants, and her funds used to come out of the grant appropriation, not from the parish government. And we was rolling.
Mr. Roussel?
Yes, I was gonna, just agree with Mr. Bartholomew. There are grant writers who will work off of the administrative fee of the grant, and we probably should pursue some of that. I know, Mr. Konovich knows someone who wrote hospital grants and works off of that administrative grant, doesn't cost us anything. So we should pursue some of that. I know there are engineering firms that will work on projects based on them securing funds through the state capital outlay and funds like that. But there are opportunities out there to do that, and I think that we should probably pursue some of them. As far as a grant writer, Ms. Lott, I've been told by, this was quite a few years ago, that she's a grant administrator, and that was inherited from Mr. Benny Puckett, who said he's not a grant writer, he's a grant administrator. And she may do an application every now and then, but we need somebody who is really aggressive to go out and earn their money by getting grants through the administrative fee tied to the grant. And I understand that there are also matching funds needed sometime, but we can make that decision when we get to it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there any more questions or comments for the parish president?
I'll give you a grant to up the air condition.
Yeah, it's hot.
Yeah.
That's the money.
Well, did you make that comment about me being old?
Well, you're old. You got more gray hair than me.
I ain't putting the air conditioner on now.
Any more questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Next item, please.
Update by civil service on open jobs. Councilmember Konovich.
Well, I had some employees contact me that they went to civil service about them getting laid off. Had questions to ask. Civil service couldn't answer them. They said, go to HR. HR said, it's not us. You got to go back to civil service. So
You are correct, Mr. Kognevich. It is a civil service function. I think if you have more concerns, the best way is to go before the Civil Service Board and express your frustrations and your concerns. Because we have,
the employees was telling me they can't get a question asked.
because they said they use that they don't work for us. They have their own board, so.
Item 4A, please.
Thank you, True.
I guess we don't need to talk about the parish president.
No update by charter directors.
Thank you.
Any questions for the charter directors? Any old business, new business? We'll move to item 5, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
It might be for the The debris that's on the side of the road, do that come under the charter directors? All the debris. I was excited today because I did see the trucks on the east bank by the river, but I noticed they was only taking the debris that was close by the road, by the ditch. But people that put theirs farther away from the highway, they left those piles. If there's some, they was only supposed to get the one close to the ditch and not the one to the pile, because they were told to bring all of our debris from the last hurricane, a lot of trees. and people put their farther from the highway than right by the ditch. Seemed like the day they was only picking up the stuff that was immediately right by the ditch and not the stuff that was there.
You talking about on the levee?
Yeah, on the side of the levee.
Actually,
That's
you're
the
not
reason
supposed
why.
to put any debris on the side of the levee.
It's not by the levee, it's right by the, like you got Highway 15, or Sergeant Paul Northey's highway, and then you have some people headed right here, and other people might have theirs by the table. It's not right by the ditch.
But it may be the pickers couldn't reach it.
Oh, no, cherry picker could read that, because they had to pull in, there's no question about it. Then they have some big containers close to the levee, and I was wondering why they had these containers close to the levee, and it was, maybe because they was full. So I was just saying, but there's some specific restriction about where you need to put the debris, because residents need to know that. Because I saw a lot of spots along these things, and when they came, I was excited on lunch, and I saw them, and I came back, but I saw the stuff was still there, they only picked them on the, but the cherry picker was on the road.
Right, that's where it's supposed to stay.
So you're saying it should be on the way for the cherry picker to pick it up, because that's not what was told, the people just told it, put it on the other side of the highway. And so some people, there's a lot of people didn't put the stuff right close to the road. I didn't, because, and I know where our church is, the cherry picker usually go in and could turn around. So I'm just trying to, and I know other areas, I don't know if you know this, Mr. Solomon, on the
I'll
highway.
check it out. I haven't been with them today, but we'll talk with them and see what's the
Yeah, that's why I say look into it, because, and they did an amazing job, but there's still so much that's still left. And I was wondering, because of where it was located, that, if people need to know that, then they can either move it over.
All right, well, some areas, they bring it too far and they can't reach it, and if they.
So it's just something to look into.
All right, item 5, please.
Bids and advertisements. A, resolution authorizing the acceptance of bids for furnishing recreation equipment and uniforms for 1 year for use by the Recreation Department. And Mr. Chairman, we do have one change on that. It's on on a date. On page 2, on line 16, since this was deferred, we need to change the date from November 11th to November 9th, 2021. I'm sorry, December 9th, 2021.
I need a motion. We have a motion by Mr. John Bartholomew, seconded by Dr. Gouy. Any question from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. Let the record reflect that Mr. Albro has left the table. Next item, please.
B, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of bids for furnishing fire hydrants for a period of 1 year for use by the Water Sewage Department.
We have a motion by Mr. Roussel, seconded by Mr. Konovich. Any question from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. Hold on.
What do you mean by furnishing only for a year? And I wanted to ask that when it first was mentioned for the top. What that mean on furnishing only for a year? Because I see the wording is used in all of them.
QM?
Means that those items are available for 1 year at that price that we are accepting today, and they're agreeing to furnish them at any time during the year for that price.
Oh, okay.
Any more questions from the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 7-4, 1 absent, and 1 not voting. Okay, we have a verbal yes by Mr. Bartholomew. Next item, please.
C, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of bids for furnishing river pump sand for parish-wide use.
We have a motion by Mr. Roussel, seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. Any question from the table? Audience, machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. Next item, please.
D, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of bids for furnishing roll-out waste containers for a period of 1 year.
We have a motion by Mr. Roussel, seconded by Mr. Conovich. Any questions from the table?
Does this mean we're gonna get regular cans at the shipyards again?
Let's move on. This is not for the shipyard. This is for home consumption.
All right.
Any questions from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0.
Doc's waiting on us. Let's go.
Next item, please.
E, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of bids for furnishing chemicals for a period of 1 year for use by the Water Sewer Department.
So often.
We have a motion by Mr. Roussel, seconded by Mr. Conovich. Any questions from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. Cue in, please, if you have a beer liquor license. Mrs. Newberry.
Begin if you want me to.
All right. I have a alcohol license renewal for Penny Gas Station at 12753 Highway 23 in Belchase. I have an alcohol license renewal, Captain Larry's, 11334 Highway 23 in Belchase.
All right.
Mr. Blank?
Sure, my well-hydrated district has several L&M Properties LLC located at 317 Rosemary Drive, Suite B. A second one for L&M Properties located at 317 Rosemary Drive, Suite A. 10 times 10 Inc. located at 3312 Highway 11 South in Buras. Gilbo's at 28564 Highway 23, Suite A. Another one for Gilbo's, the same without the suite, 28564 Highway 23, Port Sulphur. JK&A LLC, doing business as Happy Land, located at 27910 Highway 23, which may be Mr. Mr. LaFrancis. One for Dollar General, located at Dollar General Store, 19,583, located at 100 Oak Road in Empire, 7050. And a second for Dollar Store, and that one is in Jesuit Bend at 13900 Highway 23, Belchase. Yield.
Dr. Gouy?
These are all alcohol license application renewals. Belchase Self-Serve, 106 Morning Glory Court. C-Train Tavern, 136 Cedar Drive. Pepper on 23, 136 Cedar Drive. Circle K, 25 West Cedar Street. Blue Angel, 9670 Highway 23. Dollar General, 100 Mission Ridge in Tennessee. That's it.
Mr. Conovich?
That's all alcohol license. Iguanas Daiquiri Express, 36179 Buras. Deep Delta Houseboats, Venice Marina. Another one for Deep Delta Houseboats, 237 Sports Marina Road, Venice. Changes Restaurant, 42939 Highway 23, Venice. Joshua's Marine, 309 Buras Boat Harbor. Happy Land, 35949 Highway 11, Buras. Hart's Old Cypress Bar, 42813 Highway 23, Venice. Hart's, Morris Hart, 42813 Highway 23, Venice. Dollar General, 42670 Highway 23, Venice. Dollar General, 36749 Highway 11, Burris. That's it.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Service stop 3762 Highway 39, Breakway, Louisiana. B&B Blue Room 12945 Highway 15, Phoenix, Louisiana. That's all.
Okay, and I have several. B&H Beverage, 114 Azalea Drive, Fort South, Louisiana. Louis Thomas, P.O. Box 772, Fort South, Louisiana. And Dean G. Louisiana LLC, Dollar General Store at 26715 Highway 23, Fort South, Louisiana. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, I have 3 for Councilmember Arbro.
Please.
Cody B's LLC is an alcohol renewal, 8134 Highway 23. Bell Chase Fuel Mart, alcohol renewal, 8180 Bell Chase Highway. And Bell Chase Express, 7812 Highway 23. And that's it for Councilmember Arbro.
Thank you.
So,
We have a motion by Mr. Russo, seconded by Dr. Gui. Any question from the table? Audience, machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. We'll move to construction permit. We'll take item 1, 2,
7A1. Time Energy LLC, application number 2020-829, dated November 12, 2020. Plug and abandon 14 wells and removal of appurtenant structures, including approximately 28,369 linear feet of flow lines associated with the well locations, Cox Bay Field. Councilmember Bartholomew. Number 2, Daybrook Fisheries, application number 2020-888, dated November 24, 2020. Install elevated pipe rack system for processed water intake and discharge, 136 Daybrook Lane, Empire area. Councilmember Blank.
We have a motion by Mr. Blank. Seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. Any question from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 6-4, 2 extension, 1 absent. We'll take item B, C, D, E, and F in Globo. That's all fireworks stands.
7B, TLC Novelty William Hall Fireworks Stand Renewal, 8480 Highway 23, Bell Chase. Councilmember Arbro. C, Wholesale Fireworks Kirk Cavalier Fireworks Stand Renewal, 7614 Highway 23, Bell Chase. Councilmember Roussel. D, P&M Fireworks Paul Tozan Fireworks Stand Renewal, 220 Harvey Boulevard, Bell Chase. Councilmember Roussel. E, Light Boys Fireworks, Logan Light Fireworks Stand Renewal, 1454 Woodland Highway, Bell Chase. Councilmember Black. And F, Light Boys 2 Scott Lot Fireworks Stand Renewal, 9273 Highway 23, Bell Chase, Louisiana. Councilmember Gui.
We have a motion by Mr. Russo, seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. Any questions from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. We'll take item G.
Cruisers RV Park, Rodney Height, final approval for 33 additional spaces, Logan Lane, Bell Chase. Councilmember Blank.
We have a motion by Mr. Blank, seconded by Mr. Konovich. Any question from the table? Mr. Blank, how many spaces that make total now?
I want to say that's in the neighborhood of 100. This is just a final approval. Last time we did the,
This is the last one?
no complaints from the neighbors up until this point, but I'm sure you've seen they had a couple of them got turned over in the windstorm.
Right. What I also noticed that when they had a shutdown at Alliance Refinery, that none of those travel trailers was down on the southern end of the parish. And that hurts the business at Freeman and Ace Hardware, and, you know, because we keeping these, travel trailers up here.
Well, you know, if the folks at the port, you know, uphold their end of the bargain and the market, the international market, you know, works out for us, I think there's gonna be plenty of business to go around pretty soon here, hopefully.
Okay. Any questions from the table? Mr. Black?
Yeah, do you know if an inspection's been done about the surrounding properties to see if these trailers are causing any issues with the neighbors as far as flooding or?
Kind of like what you're dealing with right now with the neighborhood?
I'm asking you a question.
Yeah,
I mean, so yeah, so I mean, I'm asking you, have you gone out to that property and inspected like I did with the property that I'm talking about? So have you gone out there and checked? I just want to make sure the drainage is fine. Because we're talking about travel trailers, 33 more travel trailers as opposed to actual home sites.
So
I'm just asking a question.
So just like you, Mr. Black, I rely on the parish employees to do their job. And when these applications make it to this point, I'm trusting that that is being completed as thoroughly as possible.
So you're
Now,
saying you
does that
trust the
always
parish
happen?
employees? Yeah, you're saying you trust the parish employees?
Do you?
Yeah, because I voted actually for what they said they approved. But now you're saying that you trust them on one hand for trailers, but you don't trust them on the other hand for home sites. I'm just asking you to answer the question.
Oh, I mean, you've been bringing this trailer park up, you know, a lot of times, and sometimes I just think you don't like poor people, man.
Poor people? I'm
You know,
talking about.
I don't understand why you make a big deal
Jeez,
about
wow.
the trailer park all the time.
That's a good shot. No, I'm asking you a simple question on whether or not an additional 33 travel trailers, which is probably, I don't know, what's the total, maybe 70 now?
So I've contacted Lenny Jordan myself, who's a neighbor on one side, and I've contacted Ricky Becknell, who's on the other side, and I asked them personally, do you have any issues? And they said, no, we haven't had any issues yet. And I asked thorough questions about drainage. I asked questions about, are they planting anything, are they, you know, planting any bamboo or bushes or anything like that to obscure the view, things like that. There are some drainage issues that I have drainage requests in for. Now, I would love the administration to handle those from LA 23, especially going to the outfall canal, going to the drainage canal on the back end. So, I mean, I've thoroughly went and looked around there. I visited the site. I've consulted with the neighbors. I do my job.
Right, so the
But
drainage.
the lady that was here today, you don't see my constituents in here tonight.
Because number one, the constituents at the 33 trailer sites aren't even there yet, because they're travel trailers. So I would love to know how much ad valorem taxes each trailer is gonna provide to this parish. I'd love to know how much in sales tax building those travel trailers are gonna generate for this parish. So, but you've answered my question. You went out there, you have issues with the drainage, you've asked the administration to alleviate them, it hasn't been alleviated. You went out there and looked at it yourself. So, good deal. You trust the parish employees to do their job, so do I. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the table? Audience, machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. We'll take item H and I together.
H, Captain Harrington, Cajun Seafood, Harrington Chow, and Hillary Wynn, business occupancy 14484 Highway 23, Naomi, Councilmember Blink. Lunchbox, Rhonda Barbin, business occupancy 40018 Highway 23, Boothville, Councilmember Konovich.
We have a motion by Mr. Konovich, seconded by Mr. Blank. Any questions from the table? Audience, machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. We'll take item J and K together in global. Oh, excuse me, J is deferred, so we'll just take item K.
Louisiana Fruit Company, CZM application, CUP number P200187, dated April 29th, 2020. Bank stabilization entrance to Cypress Cove Marina off Tiger Pass located in Venice. Councilmember Konovich.
We have a motion by Mr. Konovich, seconded by
I'll second.
Mr. Blank. Any questions from the table? Audience, machines are open.
Mr. Black?
And the measure passes 8-0. While we doing construction permits, my son presently is building a home in Gonzales. And he told me, he said, Dad, you know, I have to get a mitigation permit to where his water is going to drain off. So maybe that's an idea for us. I don't know. Next item, item 8.
Introductions, we have several. These are for Councilmember LaFrance. A resolution to adopt the Plaquemines Parish Title VI Plan as required by the Federal Transportation Administration. Bear with me. These are for Councilmember Konovich. A resolution providing for canvassing the returns and declaring the results of the special election held in Plaquemines Parish, the Parish of Plaquemines, State of Louisiana, on Saturday, December 5th, 2020, to authorize the levy of a special tax therein. A resolution providing for canvassing the returns and declaring the results of the special election held in the Parish of Plaquemines, State of Louisiana, on Saturday, December 5th, 2020, to authorize the levy of a special tax therein. A resolution providing for canvassing the returns and declaring the results of the special election held in the Parish of Plaquemines, State of Louisiana, on Saturday, December 5th, 2020, to authorize the levy of a special tax therein. A resolution providing for canvassing the returns and declaring the results of the special election held in the Parish of Plaquemines, State of Louisiana, on Saturday, December 5th, 2020, to authorize the levy of a special tax therein. A resolution providing for canvassing the returns and declaring the results of a special election held in the Parish of Plaquemines, State of Louisiana, on Saturday, December 5th, 2020, to authorize the levy of a special tax therein. This is for Councilmember Black. An ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of the property of J. Circovich LLC located in Section B of Bell Chase Plantation, Section 9, Township 14 South, Range 25 East, Southeastern Land District of Louisiana, west of the Mississippi River in Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, is shown on a map of re-subdivision of lots 8, 20, and half of lots 9 and 19 into lots 8A, 9A, 9B, 9C, and 9D, property of J. Circovich LLC by Tilden J. Dufresne Jr., PLS of Dufresne Surveying and Engineering, Inc., dated September 23rd, 2020, the owner having fulfilled all the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines without cost of Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines. And that is it for the introductions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll move to item 9.
9A1, an ordinance to amend and amended to readopt Section 4 of Ordinance Number 142, the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance of Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as amended, and the Comprehensive Zoning District Map therein adopted by reference, in which is
Choose the third as well.
9A3, and there is a substitute.
Defer 3, please, as well.
Nine A4, an ordinance to amend and is amended to readopt the Plaquemines Parish Code of Ordinances relative to the parish-run youths.
Ms. Barber?
We're gonna wait till next time when some representatives from the rest of the.
Okay, so that's deferred as well.
Deferred.
Keep on going.
9B,
Might be, Mr. Alvaro not here, so we'll defer that.
nine C,
With changes?
substitute. The preamble on that is an ordinance to amend the 2020 operating revenue and their adding and expenditure budget and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
So offered. Seconded by Mr. Konovich. Any discussion from the table? Audience. Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0.
D, a resolution approving the issuance of a second two-year extension commencing upon the expiration of the current two-year extension period to Woodland Borough Pits LLC for the existing sand pit on property located in a floodplain zoning district, 22441 Highway 23, Port Sulphur, Louisiana, all in accordance with application number 2014-4771 dated January 7, 2013.
The appraisal. I offer for discussion. Mr. Roussel? Seconded by Mr. Konovich. Mr. Roussel?
Yes, last time the legal department, I think, was checking into this. Did you find out anything? When I look at the paperwork, it seems to have a gap in there of a couple of years.
Have a what?
A gap for its time. So this is just renewing a 2018 permit for 2 more years?
I don't remember that discussion, but yeah, it's my understanding that this is simply to extend what was previously done before at the time of expiration of the existing one. You're saying,
And how is that going to affect the appraisal of that property if the port is looking to purchase that property?
your voice kind of went down and I missed the second half of that
I
sentence.
said, how is that going to affect the appraisal of that property because the port is looking to purchase that property?
I mean, it's existing, ongoing, current operations. I can't imagine if it was adopted, the appraisal value would change. I mean, if there are some specific questions you all have, I certainly, we can defer it and discuss it in more depth. I did not know that this was
So my only,
going to be an issue, sorry.
my only wonder is not a complaint or anything, it's a wonder, and I was wondering if this is crossing the property that's on the River Badger that I guess some people dispute the ownership.
I don't know about disputes of ownership. All I know is when I called Demetra to discuss the location of the property, it's my understanding the entire area in this application is on the east side of Highway 23. That's all I know.
Okay.
The only thing I checked for with Demetra was to make sure that none of it was on the west side that impacted the levee.
I was contacted by Mr. Paul Hogan, whether or not he was going, if I was going to need him to be present. But I'll just go on and defer it till next time.
Nine E, we have a substitute. In ordinance to amend the 2025-year capital improvements plan, various projects and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
So offered, seconded by Mr. Konovich. Any questions from the table? Audience? Machines are open.
Mr. Gui? Mr. Bartholomew?
And the measure passes 8-0.
F, which is also another substitute. In ordinance to amend the 2020 operating revenue and expenditure budgets, various funds, various departments, various line items, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
So offered, seconded by Mr. Konovich. Any question from the table? Audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. Next item, please.
9H, a resolution authorizing and directing the parish president or his designee to do all things necessary and proper to negotiate, execute, perfect, and enforce any and all documents required to apply for a local government assistance program grant from the Office of Community Services in the amount of $58,800 to purchase electronic survey equipment for use by parish survey personnel along with one zero-turn mower.
We have a motion by Dr. Gui, seconded by Mr. Blank.
The preamble says.
Any question from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to defer items I and J.
Okay, we'll move to item H. 9H.
We already did 9H. 9K,
Okay, 9K.
an ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a donation for the parish president department and to amend the general fund 2020 operating revenue and expenditure budgets, parish president department and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
So offered. Seconded by Mr. Konovich. Any question from the table? Audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0.
L, an ordinance to amend the 2025 year capital improvements plan for preparation and recovery efforts due to Tropical Storm Cristobal and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
So offered. Seconded by Mr. Konovich. Any question from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Item M, we have changes for this. An ordinance to amend the 2025 year capital improvements plan for the preparation and recovery efforts due to Hurricane Delta and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Can you read the changes?
Yes, sir. On line 86, we're changing the dollar amount from $88,330 to $86,000. On line 9, we're changing the amount to $64,000. On line 10, we're changing the amount to $22,000. On line 16, changing the amount to $86,000. Line 18, changing the amount to $64,000 and the other amount to $22,000. And that's it for the changes.
And that's so offered. Seconded by Mr. Konovich. Any question from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0.
9N, an ordinance to amend the 2025 year capital improvements plan for preparation and recovery efforts due to Hurricane Laura and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I so offered. Seconded by Mr. Konovich. Any question from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. Next item, please.
O, we have changes for O. An ordinance to amend the 2025 year capital improvements plan for preparation and recovery efforts due to Hurricane Sandy and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And the changes are on lines 8 and 16, changing the dollar amount to $238,000. On line 9 and 18, we're changing the dollar amount to $178,000. And on lines 10 and 19, we're changing the dollar amount to $60,000.
I so offered. Seconded by Mr. Konovich. Any question from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0.
Item P, we have changes. An ordinance to amend the 2025 year capital improvements plan for preparation and recovery efforts due to Hurricane Zeta and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The changes are on lines 8 and 16, changing the dollar amount to $2,322,000. On lines 9 and 18, we're changing the dollar amount to $1,742,000. And on lines 11 and 19, we're changing the dollar amount to $580,000.
Also offered. Seconded by Mr. Conovich. Any questions from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0.
Q, an ordinance to amend the 2020 Boat Harbors and Shipyards Fund operating expenditure budget, Boat Harbors Venice Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
We have a motion by Mr. Conovich. Seconded by Mrs. Newberry. Any questions from the table? From the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0.
R, an ordinance to amend Section 12.5-9, Chapter 12.5 of the Plaquemines Parish Code of Ordinances with regard to the grant in aid programs and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
We have a motion by Mr. Bartholomew. I'll second it. Any questions from the table? From the audience? Machine are open. And the measure passes 8-0.
Under item 10, new business, there are no introduction of resolutions where suspension is being sought. 10B, District 9 update.
For mine as well, please.
D, District 1 update.
Ramps, where we are with the Point Hatch ramps, which evidently nobody's here to answer that question, so I'll just deal with it in the next council meeting. Anybody can answer that at the table? The administration?
I think they're pretty close.
No, you don't know. Right? What I'm saying, if you're not involved in it, you don't know. There you go.
E, District 7 update.
I get people.
Deferred.
F, District 5 update. Councilmember Roussel.
Mr. Roussel, your update?
No, I'm gonna defer that item, and I'm gonna withdraw G because we've already taken care of the NFIP, and Mr. Metcalf has not made an appearance. I put this on the agenda, and I obviously think that he will never come, so just like
Before you get on.
past time, it's done, it's over.
Yep, I'm down here. You catch there?
Next item, please.
10H, District 6 update.
Deferred.
Number 11, approval of the minutes from the November 12, 2020 regular meeting, the November 16, 2020 PPG budget hearings, the November 17, 2020, and December 1st, 2020 special meetings.
We have a motion by Mr. Conovich, seconded by Mr. Blank. Any questions from the table? Audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. We have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Conovich, seconded by Dr. Gui. Any questions from the table? Audience? Machines are open.
You don't know.
Ms. Newberry, Mr. Blank?
Ms. Newberry?
That's it?
And the measure passes 8-0.
All right.
We will have adjournment at
8 o'clock.
7:53. I would like to take the time to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's.
Merry Christmas.